also feel like the American dream is out of reach. So when it comes to protecting Social Security, what can we do? We can scrap the cap. Right now, if you make over $174,000 a year, you don't have to continue paying into Social Security. Why are we giving breaks to the uber wealthy? That's unacceptable. And first and foremost, when it comes to housing, Dan Tully was right. We need to make sure.
Thank you so much. So we are going to move on to Melissa Bean.
So we do need a plan. And so I have an Empowering Young Americans plan that's specifically targeted to young people, like you mentioned, because they don't want to live in their parents' basement. They don't want to have to get help with a down payment. Most of their parents didn't need that. They're working just as hard as their parents did, and they deserve a right to buy a house today. One of the ways we can do that is there are historic home preservations in a lot of municipalities. We need preservation of starter homes. 2-bedroom homes that are in communities. We see what's happening right now. They're being knocked down and replaced with 4-bedroom homes. Most of us, when we bought our first house, we started in a two-bedroom, 1-bath house. That was the ladder of upward mobility, a place to get a little bit of equity, so later we could roll that into a bigger home. That's just one example. I know I'm running out of time.
Yes.
Of what the kinds of ideas that we can do in a young American empowerment plan.
We're going to move on to Janae Ahmed next.
When my dad worked hard, he was able to find a better life for I and my siblings. He was able to afford a house. Even though he had to work 2 jobs at times as a new immigrant to this country, he still had a path. He still had an opportunity. That opportunity is what needs to be brought back. And that, one of the first things that I would be focusing on is increasing the minimum wage. If somebody is working 40 hours a week, they are able to afford a respectable life. When both parents are working, there needs to be investment in childcare. So the mothers who are going back to work don't have to worry about an arm and a length to pay for their care. Universal preschool is something.
Thank you so much.
45 seconds.
45 seconds is quick. Ryan Bedekin.
So, as a young person, I definitely feel this. For the past couple of years, I was working at the DOJ in Washington, D.C. I had 4 roommates. This is 4 guys living in a row home in Washington, D.C. It's not the most fun. But the big thing to understand is one story that really resonates with me is my mom. When she first came to the States, it was the 90s, and Bill Clinton was president. And the way she described things to me was just, everyone had a job. Just everyone had a job. We had a budget surplus, and things were looking up. NAFTA was just passed as well, and so we were trading with foreign partners and making things easier for everyday Americans, both for creating jobs as well as the cost of goods. For economies, the best way to do it is, everyone on this stage agrees that we have to remove these tariffs.
Thank you. Sanja, you are next.
Thank you. As somebody who also came here as an immigrant, my parents came from India. I grew up with a father who worked 2 jobs as an architect and then building homes on the side. I'm very worried today as I take a look around and I see many of the young people who graduate with degrees and are experiencing a 13% unemployment rate. Those first jobs are absolutely critical to setting you up. I started babysitting at 10. I then went to deliver newspapers during my time at Northwestern and telemarketed. Those are the places that you develop the reliability, the dependability, and the skills. And I have a plan for a public-private partnership with small businesses to develop the training so that people do get those first jobs.
Thank you so much. Yasmin?
I appreciate the fact that some of my opponents talked about young people. I am young people. I'm 32 years old. I would love to be able to be a homeowner soon. I'm not there yet. And so I just believe that those that are closest to the issue fight harder. And what we need right now is someone who is going to fight for these things, because they're not going to be handed to us. In fact, the opposite is happening. The things that we have always counted on are just being flipped and are out of control with this current administration. You know, one of my opponents said that property tax needs to be reduced. I agree. But I also understand that it's the county that sets property tax, it's the municipalities that sets property tax, and I know that that's not
All
something
right.
that I'd be able to do
Thank you.
from DC.
Thank you. And then Dan, you are going to round us out for this segment.
As tough as conditions are currently for young people, if we don't take action with respect to artificial intelligence, conditions will get far worse. Right now, artificial intelligence could take 10% of existing jobs in its current form. Fast forward 5 to 6 years, 40% of jobs that currently exist could be wiped out. We do a disservice to young people if we pretend like that's not an issue. A couple of different things that we could do in Congress to better prepare people for that. Specifically, job training for those jobs that involve artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, it must remain a tool, must remain human-centric, never become a master. But in addition to those AI type jobs, we also need to expand access to Pell Grants to include job apprenticeships and other union trades.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Dan. All right, candidates. That was a great discussion, but we're going to move on to our next segment, which is foreign policy. Safe to say that President Trump's not been shy about attempting to flex authority on the global stage. We saw him recently extract Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro, make suggestions about taking over Greenland and undermining NATO, and most recently with suggestions of military involvement in the country of Iran, where anti-regime protests are occurring at historic levels. And that's just in the past 2 weeks of this thing we call 2026. All of that is to say that through all of this, Congress has notably taken a back seat. Just yesterday, the United States Senate voted to block a war powers resolution that would have limited President Trump's authority with military involvement in Venezuela. Right now, do you think, with all of this that is happening, especially with this administration, do you think congressional oversight over foreign policy is missing in all of this? And if so, how do you plan on restoring that congressional oversight over the White House? And for this one, we're going to start with Dan.
Thank you very much. A lot of my career has been spent in foreign policy, both in the military with U.S. Geographic Command for the Indo-Pacific, that's Indo-PACOM, as well as a year deployed in Baghdad fighting ISIS, and then most recently with the Department of Commerce, mostly focused in Asia, working with different countries to improve the rule of law in order to counter Chinese influence. All that to say, yes, oversight is missing. We have an AUMF from 2001. That's an authorization for the use of military force that's been on the books since 2001. It has language tying events and actors that we can target to September 11th, 2001. Presidents of both parties have abused that as an authorization to conduct military activities as a part of the war on terror in over 22 different countries over the years. The president right now cites the 2001 AUMF as his justification for going in, killing 100 people in Venezuela and taking out Maduro. He's citing that as his justification for going and potentially taking Greenland, severing our alliances with NATO. What we need to do is repeal the 2001 AUMF.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan. Next is Yasmin.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. So, do you think congressional oversight is missing in all of what this White House has been doing? If so, how do you plan on restoring congressional oversight over the White House on matters of foreign policy?
So congressional oversight is there, right? Congress has the ability to put on hearings, ask questions, look into matters in an investigative sense. But what is happening right now is that this administration has completely disregarded laws. They have broken laws. And so it's not so much that the oversight isn't there. There is oversight. We just need new leadership. Surprise, we just need a new president. And so when we think about foreign policy, I think about the fact that we are currently bombing nations at will. We're just bombing poor people. I don't understand how that's an America First agenda. And I also don't understand how we have money for bombs, but we don't have money to pay our teachers in this country. You know, we also have, I would just love to see a more balanced approach when it comes to foreign spending. The investment that we put into warfare, I would love to see an equally matched investment domestically.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ryan, you are next.
So also, along with Dan, much of my career has also been focused on foreign policy. I've worked overseas as a Fulbright scholar in Austria. I have my master's in international law from the University of Chicago. And for the past 2 years, I worked on prosecuting international terrorist attacks, along with school shootings and the January 6th insurrectionists at the Department of Justice. And so much of what I've seen in regards to foreign policy is, yes, that Congress does need to have a lot more say in how we conduct our foreign affairs. Currently, Raja Krishnamoorthi, the current congressman, is on 2 committees on Capitol Hill, one of which is the House Select Committee on Intelligence. This is a committee that, if you have a top secret clearance, both me and Dan are the only ones on this stage that hold one, that you get access to information in regards to conducting covert action in military operations overseas. That committee and Raja should have been informed about the actions occurring in Venezuela. And so if they were informed, they could have put their input, discussed it, and had a better discussion on
Thank
what to
you. Kevin, you are next.
So first and foremost, we have a Republican Party that is completely kneecapped right now, and they are beholden to one person, and that is Donald Trump and his administration. That is unacceptable, and that's why we need to do everything within our power to not only hold every Democratic seat that we currently hold, but win back power in the House and hopefully the Senate as well. We need actual checks and balances in this country, and that means having a Congress that is actually going to put forward oversight, who's going to look into the illegal actions that we're seeing by a wannabe dictator. What was said was absolutely correct. Congressional leadership should have been made aware that we were about to go into a foreign country and kidnap, though a dictator, but kidnap a foreign leader. And the fact that we are not seeing this administration communicate with congressional leadership is unacceptable. I have a record of electing people not just here in the state of Illinois, but across the nation. So send me to Congress and help me win this primary on March 17th, and I'll go around the nation doing the same.
Thank you, Kevin. Sandra, you are next.
Thank you. As somebody who spent my career both working in the private sector and then also focused on economic and national security, and I continue to work on policies, this is something that I'm very focused on and can be effective on day one in DC if elected. We need to understand that this president uses his daily opportunities of tweets to just sow discord and chaos. We need to be treating our allies with dignity and respect and building multilateral coalitions to protect our foreign policy interests. We have currently 60 foreign policy challenges around the world, 60. There are a handful that make our attention. But even if we're not interested in foreign policy, it's interested in us. What do I mean by that? It's something that we need to be focused on for national security, protecting our water supply, protecting our electric grid. So really making sure that Congress seizes back the authority it already has to make sure that we execute on seeing oversight on all of these critical issues. Whether it is making sure that we stand by people with moral clarity in Venezuela and in Iran, let's make sure that we have principled foreign policy.
Thank you. Melissa Bean, you are next.
The framers of our Constitution were very wise, and they created war powers explicitly for Congress. They'd seen what happens when there's a king or one person that makes all the decisions, and they didn't want that to ever happen in this country. And so war powers belong to Congress. This is not the first president who's tried to stretch executive authority, but this is the first time we've had the weakest speaker in the history of our nation who has allowed it to happen. So there is usurpation, but there's also abdication. They don't want to do the work, they want to let one guy decide everything, and it's just not okay. We really need to take back the House, and when we do, restore our Constitution, separation of powers, balance of powers, because it's not just happening in relation to what's going on at a foreign level, but look what's going on in Minnesota. It's under occupation right now. We're on the brink of a civil war. We need to take back the House and get back to what our framers intended.
Thank you. And then Janae Ahmed.
Obviously, this is a clear overreach of power by this president who is completely off guard, off rail. And he's making unilateral decisions, and the War Power Act clearly needs to come back to Congress, and the Congress majority Democrats can do it, and we will do it. Look, we as a nation now are going through a phase where so far we were able to go and tell other countries, behave or you will face consequences. Now we are going and kidnapping people. How are we going to go tell Putin if he were to do something similar? How are we going to deal with the situation when China does something to Taiwan? Because when we are setting that precedence, this is dangerous, people. My friends, this is dangerous. We got to fix that. And as a Democratic majority Congress, we will take those powers back from the president to Congress. Also, we need to stop bombing innocent civilians.
Thank you, Junaid. And we are going to run it back with the same order for our rebuttals. Again, reminder, 45 seconds. Let's stick to time, please. And just to frame it, very open-ended question to set things up. What's the biggest challenge that you think America faces on the global stage? It's that, and we're going to start with Dan again, 45 seconds.
Absolutely. A couple of quick notes that would dispute the characterization that there is congressional oversight. Right now, when we saw the action in Venezuela, the oil executives knew, Congress did not. We don't have oversight. Number two, yes, the framers were wise, but they assumed that loyalties would be greater to the institution of the Congress than to the party. That's proving not to be the case. People are more loyal to their party, now to the president, rather than to the institution of Congress. So that's why we need to figure out what it means to declare war in the context of modern warfare. I think that bipartisan agreement should be there, that there should be no executive action initiating kinetic action until Congress weighs in. The biggest challenge is the PRC, is China. I've spent a lot of my career countering China. I have an advanced law degree in China, Chinese law. I can tell you that President Xi Jinping has told the PLA to be ready to take Taiwan by force by 27. We need to be ready for that.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you. Yasmin?
I agree with my opponents that we need to take back the House. But even when we do take back the House, which we will, President Trump still will be president. And so it's not only a matter of taking back the House. Leadership is also something that needs to be addressed when we're talking about foreign policy. I mean, I agree. We have ruined many of the relationships that we have with our allies. When we talk about national security, we should also be talking about USAID, about global health. There is so much money and funding that has been taken from, hello?
Yeah, you're good.
Oh, sorry. There is so much funding that has been taken from developing nations around the world that has been used for national security in a soft sense. And so when I think about these things, I think about
Good. Good. Done.
We're going to just continue with this. Ryan, we have you next.
So when we talk about foreign policy, we usually look at the bad things that happen in other countries and how we can do it. But I also argue that we should look at the good things. I worked abroad in Austria for a year as a Fulbright scholar. And when I was there, the transportation system, the education system, the healthcare system is light years ahead of where the United States is. And I was just wondering, why is this small little country nestled in the mountains of the Alps, how is it doing better than the wealthiest country in the entire world? And I think a lot of it has to do with politics and where politicians hold their loyalties. I'm committed to a ban on congressional stock trading. I've already sold all of the stocks that I own, and the reason I've done that is because when politicians hold loyalties to corporations, they don't enact policies that are beneficial to the United States.
Kevin?
What's the biggest issue on the global stage? It's the fact that we have made ourselves a laughingstock. Our allies no longer trust us. We are buddying up to dictators and authoritarian regimes, and that is unacceptable. And Yasmin is correct. Donald Trump will still be president after the midterm. But we need to make sure we are sending the strongest fighters to Congress with proven track records of electing Democrats so that when that next presidential election is before us, we've got voices that are actually going to return the faith in our electorate that their federal elected officials are fighting for them. That's a common theme I hear at the doors. Our voters don't feel like they have a voice. I make sure to meet with my constituents. I've had an open door policy as a county commissioner, and I'll have one as a congressman.
Thank you so much. Sanja?
Thank you. When I'm out talking to people, particularly when they're talking about both domestic and international issues, they always say, we understand what people are fighting against. We know that we're fighting against this chaotic administration. What are we fighting for? That's why I got into this race. You asked for the two biggest issues that I see that are facing both our society and our world. The first is AI. You heard Dan say that a little bit, but let me expand upon it. It's not just about jobs. AI has tremendous opportunity, but it also can be a force of very great evil. We need to have global guardrails. We need to be able to lead globally, to create a coalition where everybody agrees to the same rules. By the way, we did this with nuclear proliferation, right? We understood that nuclear weapons were dangerous. The second is energy sources.
Thank you, Sanja.
Thank you. I'll come back to energy later.
Melissa Bean.
I think the number one global challenge we're facing is the climate crisis, and I'm surprised it hasn't come up sooner. That's the greatest existential threat for the human species to survive on this planet. Not enough has been done globally, and since Donald Trump and the Republicans have taken over, we've actually regressed from where we were starting to move forward with the rest of the world and our allies to address this situation. We're going to have to, when we take back the House, rebuild those alliances and get focused on the environment again and take drastic actions because we're approaching a very critical tipping point. But alliances are important. Failing democracies are a challenge. There are other national securities we could talk about, but I can see my time is over.
Thank you so much. And then Janae, you're going to round us out this round.
We were still on the foreign policy one, right? Just making sure.
We're in the rebuttal segment now.
Okay, global, yeah, of course. So, all right, I think we've gotten into a habit of getting into wars. We've gotten into a habit of bombing innocent civilians, kidnapping people, taking money from our resources, and funding foreign wars. We have seen that our money is being used to starve children, to bomb innocent civilians. I have taken a public oath that I will be supporting Delia Ramirez's Block the Bombs Act. We are talking about immigration crises, but we are aiding in creating those situations. Look at Guatemala, Haiti. We aided in creating those situations.
Thank you so much. Lindsay, maybe if we can just hold up the paddle just at 30 seconds, just hold it up, and so that way they know. Would that be helpful for you guys? Perfect. If we could just hold it.
Look at Lindsay. I'll promise I'll look next time.
So we'll just hold it up and then flip it when it's time to stop. Thank you so much, Lindsay. We're going to move on to our next segment, which is the topic of immigration. It is one of the issues that got President Trump elected in 2024. However, in the last 12 months of his second term, ICE enforcement has taken center stage and has become a feature of his administration. There have been concerns about racial profiling and excessive force that have been voiced in incidents throughout the country. We all, I'm sure by now, have seen the deeply disturbing images from Minnesota last week, where an ICE agent did shoot and kill Renee Nicole Good. It has prompted significant protests in the city of Minneapolis. As a response, Congresswoman Robin Kelly introduced articles of impeachment against Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. Senator Chris Murphy suggested withholding funds to the Department of Homeland Security until they change their tactics. Others have suggested abolishing ICE altogether. Do you believe this administration's immigration enforcement tactics are going too far? Why or why not? And if yes, how do you intend on holding them accountable? Are one of the things that I mentioned maybe one of those routes? And starting us off this round is going to be Melissa Bean.
It's kind of shocking when we talk to our friends and neighbors about what happened, and you think, well, our eyes don't lie. And it was shocking to hear it wasn't 60 Minutes, I think it was David Brooks talked about how there's data that suggests two people can look at the same thing, but because of where they're coming from, they see something entirely different. I'm shocked that anyone would suggest that this woman was a threat to anybody in ICE. I don't think our eyes lie. We really need to get rid of Christy Nome. I started a petition to make sure that that happens. ICE is untrained, they're unchecked, and they're unnecessary in our communities. We need to get them out, and we need to stop hiring any more and get rid of those that have crossed the line.
Thank you so much. Next up, Sanjay Denny.
Thank you. This is something that is very passionate and important to me, obviously, as an immigrant, but also it's something that I'm hearing throughout our district. I have been talking since day one about pro-legal immigration reform. There is absolutely no question that this administration has overreached. Is there anything they have not overreached with? But this is a playbook that this president knows how to use. Trigger the Democrats and then use that as bait for his base. And we must not allow ourselves to be distracted. We want safe and secure borders. We can all agree on that. But we want to make sure that we have safe, legal, transparent, fair pathways for people to get faster visas, green cards, and citizenship. No one should be waiting years for a visa. And that's exactly what ICE is using to take advantage of. So we need to stand firm. On day one, I will be delivering pro-legal immigration reform. And quite frankly, we should have had immigration reform 20 years ago. It's a shame and it's really a travesty that we have gotten to this point. And it is a fault of both parties.
Thank you, Sanjay. Dan, you're next.
ICE accountability is one of the primary pillars of my Trump accountability plan. Number one, on day one of taking the Democrats taking over the House of Representatives, we create an ICE accountability commission. Using the videos that are submitted by citizens all across the country, we are able to map out the ICE abuse incidents. Then we're able to subpoena the Department of Homeland Security to get the records of which federal employee was there. The masks aren't going to work to hide identities. We're going to be able to get the travel records, the vehicle logs, the expense reports, and get a small universe of which federal employees were there. If the FBI can figure out which of the thousands of Americans were there at the Capitol on January 6th, certainly the United States Congress can figure out who's behind those masks. And then number two, when we have a cabinet member like Kristi Noem promoting lawlessness, we should use the inherent contempt power of Congress. That means we can hold that person in contempt, bring them to the floor of the House, read them what they've done wrong, and we can even go so far as incarcerate them.
Thank you, Dan. We are going to move on to Junaid.
What we saw in Minnesota, a cold-blooded murder by someone in uniform. Who would have imagined that we could say a day like this in America? And we have. What DC needs is a fighter from this district. Somebody who is not talking about ICE because now you're running for office. It's good to talk about ICE. As a citizen in Trump 1.0, about 30 miles northwest of here in McHenry ICE Detention Center, when parents were being separated from children, we protested with some of you in the room here. We protested in cold nights for weeks and weeks until we successfully shut down that ICE detention center. That's the kind of fighting spirit that we need to take to Washington, D.C. so we can hold Kristi Noem accountable, we can hold this president accountable, and do what is right for people. I understand the problem of immigrants as an immigrant myself, and I will make that commitment that I will be standing for what is right for this people in this district.
Thank you. Kevin?
Well, first and foremost, it's unacceptable that we have armed federal agents operating in residential neighborhoods to begin with. Renee Nicole Good was the fifth life lost by ICE activities across this country. We need leadership that actually has a track record of delivering, not just saying that they're going to stand up against ICE. As a county commissioner, I passed a resolution of Cook County's support for due process and habeas corpus. We should be embarrassed about that. That's in our Constitution. Those are rights we all should already have. I passed a resolution calling to unmask ICE agents and calling them to all wear body armed cameras. Now, they also are required to only detain people if they have a legal warrant to do so. We need to make sure our Congress is actually ensuring that that occurs. At the county, we banned ICE from operating on our county properties. In Congress, what I'm going to do for you is I'm going to investigate and legislate. We're going to make sure that every illegal activity is investigated and these ICE agents are held accountable for their illegal actions.
Thank you so much. Yasmin, we have you next.
The topic of immigration is very personal to me. I am the daughter of immigrants, and I watched many of my family members go through this process. It is long, it is expensive. If you hire a bad attorney, which is what happened with my family, it makes it longer and expensive. And so I think that many of us want immigration reform, modern, we would like a modern immigration system, but I think it can be done without cruelty, and it can be done with respect and dignity at the forefront. And so I am an advocate for passing the DREAM Act. It's something that's been championed by Senator Dick Durbin for many years. It would provide a pathway to citizenship, but also in my local role, I'm not waiting until Congress to get things done. I'm getting things done right now. 2 years ago, I passed a welcoming ordinance in Hanover Park due to anti-immigrant sentiment, and last month I passed an ordinance that says that if you are ICE, you cannot operate in our metro lots, on our police department
Thank you
lots,
so
in our
much.
fire department lots,
Thank you,
anywhere where
Yasmin.
we own property.
Thank you. Ryan?
So a couple weeks ago, I went to the city of Elgin, and the city of Elgin held a town hall on immigration enforcement and what was happening there. For those of you who don't know, on December 6th, ICE came to Elgin, to our community. This is here in the district, and people were voicing their concerns, and I was hearing folks talk about what happened on that day in Maple Avenue. And it's wretched. Similar to what happened in Minneapolis, it's happening here in this district, and it's only going to get worse. 30% of the district is Hispanic and Latino, 15% of the district is Asian American, and so we have to really fight to protect our immigrants here in the district. James Tallarico, he's a Senate candidate in Texas. He describes immigration reform as we have to keep our southern border as a welcome mat with the door behind us locked. And so if we do that, we could treat immigrants with grace and humility while also not allowing criminals to come in. And so there's a lot that we can do, and then we just have to keep fighting to make it better.
Thank you. So, staying on the topic of immigration for this next rebuttal segment, 45 seconds, the issue of immigration is going to stay in our political discourse until I think we have meaningful reform. And meaningful reform has been something that has been mentioned for longer than I've been alive. So if we are talking about the issue of immigration, how are we supposed to get meaningful reform passed? Is it actually possible? And we are going to start with Melissa Bean again.
It is possible, and there was a bill that was ready to be brought to the floor that had been worked on a bipartisan basis, but President Biden understood that everything shouldn't be done by executive authority, and so he left the Congress and said, I will sign it when you bring it. And they worked through it, and they had bipartisan support, and they were ready to bring it until Trump called again Mike Johnson, weakest speaker in the history of the nation, and said, don't bring the bill to the floor because it will hurt my election potential. So there's broad support for that. I think everyone, I'm speaking for everyone, I shouldn't, would have supported that bill that would allow a path to citizenship for those that are here who haven't committed crimes, and we need to bring it back, and we will when we take back the House.
Thank you so much. Sanja?
Thank you. Adding on to, I have been a supporter of the Dignity Act, which has also got bipartisan support of over 100 people in Congress. Specifically, the things that it would do, things that we should have passed more than 20 years ago. This is to update country quotas, make sure we have pathways to legal visas, make sure dreamers have access and pathways to citizenship. We also need to protect the asylum pathway for those who really need special visas. As someone who mentored Afghan women entrepreneurs in Afghanistan let that sink in for a moment, for more than 15 years. This was particularly important given the way we had to leave Afghanistan, and making sure that we were able to take the people who had helped us with the military. We were able to bring out 1,000, but more
Thank
than
you,
60
Sandra.
were left.
Thank you.
60,000.
Dan, you are next.
If Ronald Reagan could pass a general amnesty for immigration in the 80s, certainly it's possible to get to immigration reform now. I would say, though, that we need more than just fighters. What does fighting mean in a democracy? Fighting means going and convincing someone that your idea is worth investing in, is worthy. So what I'd like to do is engage in what I call domestic diplomacy. We live in an island of blue in a sea of red. Go an hour north, west, or south, and you're in a place where people live in very different sets of facts. If we have an idea like immigration reform, we can't just yell about it and then make it be the loudest and expect people to get on board. What we need to do is go first, use the tools of diplomacy, listen, seek understanding, and then share information. And over time, over iterated actions, we can build a consensus around immigration reform.
Thank you, Dan. Junaid?
Immigration. I'm the living testament that immigration is good. I'm married with 4 awesome kids, own a tech firm, a success story for the hard work that my parents have brought together. That is the fight I will take, and I will do everything it takes to put a path to citizenship for all the undocumented fellow people that are in this country. I will work on passing the Dreamers Act and treating the refugees with respect. Basic, simple values that America was built on, that America was great for. Those basic things is what we're going to bring back to life.
Thank you. Kevin Morrison?
One second. It's work.
Okay, is this one working?
I think so.
Hello, everyone. If you're not Native American, then you're an immigrant. Almost all of us in this room immigrated to this nation, or some of our family members did before us. As a county commissioner, I'm proud that I got to create Cook County's very first immigration court, providing public defender assistance to the immigrants within Cook County. I'm also an attorney, and I studied immigration law. It's actually been almost 50 years since we've seen comprehensive immigration reform in the United States. It could take up to 2 years till you get your court date. It's inefficient, and it is not helpful, especially with the situation with anyone, be it if you're seeking asylum or you're a victim of domestic violence trying to get legal status to work in this country. We need comprehensive reform. I would support the DREAM Act and the Dignity Act, and we need to do better.
Thank you. Yasmin Bankole?
I agree with many of the things that have already been said, but Ishan, you brought up that Congresswoman Robin Kelly introduced 3 articles of impeachment against Secretary Noam, and I think that's very significant because that's something that shows that there are still people within Congress that are willing to stand up and be bold and take action when we need it most. We need more of that. I'm actually the only person up here that has worked on an impeachment, worked on the 2019 impeachment because it came through the Oversight Committee, and I was still on staff with Congressman Raja Krishnamurthy, worked on this Donald Trump's second impeachment after the January 6, 2021 insurrection. And when I think about where we're going, I think that we're ready
Yasmin.
for a 3rd impeachment.
We are going to go on to Ryan now.
So just as everyone has mentioned here, everyone on this stage is an immigrant. Kevin's family is from Italy, Yasmin's is from Nigeria, myself from India. Serbian American, India for Junaid and Sanjot and Dan. If you trace back, I'm sure. But, Ireland, yeah. So I think we all agree that there needs to be comprehensive immigration reform. Something that I really support is also just working across the aisle. Dan mentioned that if you travel an hour north, an hour south, an hour to the west, people have vastly different views on immigration. And so I propose that we should grant every undocumented person in the United States legal permanent status. Not exactly a path to citizenship just yet.
Thank you, Ryan.
But just something that we can move the needle forward.
Thank you. All right, we are going to move on to our next segment, which is about how you would be a member of Congress. Different members of Congress are known for their different skills, whether it's working across the aisle, being an effective communicator, or being active in their districts. What kind of member of Congress do you intend on being, and how has your time on the campaign trail so far shown that? And if you are elected, how do you plan on making your office accessible to the voters of this district? Would you do town halls? Would you show up when you are invited to as many events as you can? Maybe there's something I haven't listed yet, but tell us how you plan on serving the people of this district. And we are going to start with Ryan Betticat. Pass over that microphone.
Hello? From the start of my campaign, I've committed to 3 main ideals, and one of which was hosting monthly in-person town halls. So many members of Congress do not host these, and the reason for that is because they don't want to talk to their constituents. I think that is just egregiously wrong. I think if you are a member of Congress, if I am your member of Congress, that you should be able to talk to me, have conversations with me, even yell at me. Please yell at me if I'm doing something wrong. That way we can move the needle forward on issues that are important to all of us. I've mentioned before that I'm an extremely young candidate. I'm 24 years old. If you've read your Constitution, you have to be 25 to be a member of the House. I'll turn 25 a week before the election. But the reason I decided to run also is because young men, especially I think, need to move towards the Democratic Party. I've asked many of my buddies, hey, like, here are 10 issues. What are your thoughts on each of these issues? And they're blue to their core. But hey, what party do you identify with? Oh, I'm a Republican. Like, no, you're not. It's just really a vibes thing. And I think that's something I really bring to the table to move things forward.
Kevin?
So I've participated in every single forum that has been offered here in this race, except for one. I had a loss in my family. I've been showing up to all the Democratic organization meetings. I've been showing up at all of our local protests. I've been going all throughout the 8th Congressional from day one of this campaign and even beforehand. I was born in Elk Grove Village. I've grown up in the northwest suburbs. These are the communities that I actually understand, and I want to be your voice. And so that means hosting regular town halls, hearing from your constituents, because how are you going to legislate for the issues that matter to them if you're not meeting with them regularly? As a commissioner, I've hosted a open door policy. I would do that again as a congressman. But I also have a good record of getting along with everyone, finding common ground, and getting things done. Too many elected officials have big egos and are doing it for self-interest. I am running for Congress because I actually care about making this world better. I want to work for you. I want to find out what matters to you and find solutions.
Thank you so much. Yasmin, you're next.
So I am also currently an elected official in the district, and currently how I lead is I'm present, I show up, I listen to my residents, and I don't lie to them. And I think that last part is really important, because for too long, politicians ask us to vote for them and that this is the most important election of our lives. And then they get into Congress and then they don't do what they said that they were going to do. And so those are the ideals that I encompass now, and it's what I would encompass as a congresswoman. But I also want to bring attention to the fact that it currently feels like we are in a war zone, and so we would need someone who is a wartime member of Congress. We can talk about all the great things that we would like to pass, but if we don't stop Donald Trump, none of those things will happen. And so we need to have that mentality going into things. And that looks like beefing up our US court systems, because that's the only checks and balance that's currently working.
Thank you. Thank you, Yasmin. We're going to move on to We're going to move on to Sanjay.
Thank you for that. We can all agree that we definitely want to stop this administration. What we're hearing, though, is we have different strategies. This is a president who is twice impeached. and with multiple felonies. And yet what happened last year? He won by majorities. I think we need a new strategy, and that's what I'm offering, a bold, new two-pronged strategy. Defend democracy, but also provide a path and a vision forward. I'm the kind of person who shows up, and I've been out in the district, I've met with many of you, I listen. I want to hear what the issues are. I want to figure out how we can be collaborating. Last 7 years, I've been focused on red to blue races around the country. I understand how to build bridges. I've done it my whole career. And lastly, I bring in an innovation mindset. What does that mean? Innovators are really about can-do minds, right? We are not about what we need to limit and only fight against, but we want to know what we're fighting for. How do we create a path forward that people can feel hopeful and that we can build the majority again?
Thank you. Junaid, we have you next.
I think when you're selecting your next congressman, I'm sure everybody on this table is running for the right reasons. I invite you to look at what they have done in the last 10 years, 20 years. I'm that community organizer. I'm the activist who has been on the streets of Schaumburg, on the streets of Elgin, on the streets of Palatine, fighting for healthcare to be a human right, not a privilege, for protecting our environment. I talked about the McHenry ICE Detention Center. Been around the block, fighting shoulder to shoulder with the people of this district for what is right for this district and for this country. That's the kind of congressman I would be, that I will be with you shoulder to shoulder, town halls and being different, there are different mechanisms, there are different means of staying in connected, but I will be that person who will be shoulder to shoulder next to you, because I have shown that as a citizen, and I will do the same thing as a candidate.
Thank you. Dan, we have you next.
A member of Congress has to do two different types of communication: input and output. Input, that means engaging with the constituents, the people of this district, to hear what you're thinking so that I would be able to represent you. The output, speaking to outside groups and spreading the democratic message around to outsiders outside of this district. So number one, for the input, on this campaign trail, I've not only gone to events, I'm hosting Tully town halls. I've actually just had 2 so far. I'm gonna have 9 coming up in the next weeks. Please visit dantully.com. I've actually got a town halls page, and find a town hall near you, because I talk fast in this because there's so many ideas that we could discuss and figure out ways that we can improve situation, but the time and forms just doesn't allow for it. If you come out to a town hall, I'll look forward to engaging with you. The other aspect of input is making sure to meet with every single group, not just the ones that align with you. For output, my model is going to be Pete Buttigieg. When Pete Buttigieg was the Secretary of Transportation, he was on Fox News daily, if not weekly, to engage with people on the other side of the aisle, because only over those iterated interactions are you able to move the ball forward.
Melissa Bean, you are next.
As the only one who's actually served in Congress, I'm very proud of my record, and I think it stands for itself. My husband is here, and he knows it's a 24/7 job. I missed a lot of recitals for my kids, but it was worth it. I was a wartime congressperson because I went to Iraq. And interestingly enough, when we were in the helicopter going to visit our troops in Iraq, and I went more than once, to hear that they were getting the resources they needed. It was the Democrats who were there to see that the troops were okay, not the Republicans who voted for the war. They didn't go visit, but we did. I did teletown halls, I did in-person town halls, I did Congress at your corner at libraries, because listening matters. And I found there's a lot of influencers in Washington, but the best ideas I got and the bills that I wrote on the Small Business Committee on behalf of small businesses came from those business owners that I talked to in the community. I also hosted small business forums and brought in the Commerce Department and the SBA so people would understand their resources.
So
I stand on my record. Thank you.
We are going to move on to our rebuttal segment. This is a question that we had audience submitted questions, just as a reminder, and this was by far the question that kept coming in the most. There are 7 of you on this stage tonight. The voters have to pick one of them. Pick one of you. Why are you the most qualified person for the job right now in the moment we find ourselves in? 45 seconds. We are going to start once again with Ryan. You can make it.
So, one thing that all of us here are, again, we're aligned on the issues to the most part. Some are more blue, some are less blue. It's all just different shades of blue. But something that I'm also focused on, and I think I'm in a unique position to be in as the youngest person in this race, the youngest person running for Congress across the country, is help flip races across this country. I mentioned James Talarico running in Texas. There's John Ossoff running in Georgia. There's Graham Plattner running against Susan Collins in Maine. There's Mary Patolov running in Alaska. These are races that I think that if I was elected your congressman, I would travel to, I would speak to young men, I would help flip the rest of the country blue.
Thank you. Kevin Morrison?
You know, I have one question. Where has she been? I've been active in local and national politics since 2009. I didn't meet her until just a few months ago, right after she jumped in this race. We have seen reproductive health care and LGBTQ rights and our civil liberties under attack for the last 15 years. I've been on the county board for 7 years, and I made reproductive health care and gender identity protected classes for 5.2 million people. I want to know where former Congresswoman Bean was when those rights were under attack. The person who beat her in 2010 actually was speaking up more against Donald Trump than she did in the last decade. That was Joe Walsh, and that's why I accepted his endorsement. I don't approve of everything he's done or said, but at least he stands up against Trump.
Thank you. Yasmin, you're next.
I'd like to get back to the question that you proposed later on and respond to some of the things that have been said here. One of my opponents said that they are a community organizer. Community organizing is so much different than legislating, and we need someone that is in Congress that understands the difference between these two things. We cannot have someone in this position that is just learning government 101. That is why we need that's why experience is so important. Former Congresswoman Bean said that she is a wartime Congresswoman. Most of her time in Congress was spent during the Obama years. The Obama years seem like the golden years compared to now. We are at real war during this Trump administration, and so we need someone who is up for the task.
Thank you. Sanjay?
Thank you. Why do I think I'm the best? I said a little earlier that I think we need to rebuild the majority, the middle. We really need to make sure that we are the majority so we don't play second fiddle in 26 and 28. I know how to build bridges with people who think differently. I know how to find shared values and find common ground. We can all agree that this administration needs to be checked. At the national level, I've already been involved with policy. I serve on the board of the National Small Business Association, 66,000 members, and Truman Center for National Policy, which is about principled foreign policy. And lastly, I'm the person who is focused on solutions. I'm fighting for something that all of you will be able to see. You will feel the impact in your pocketbook. You will see the impact in your neighborhood, short, medium, and long term for our children.
Thank you so much. Janae?
Talking about experience, the people who are taking this fight, keep in mind, this fight is not just against the MAGA Republicans. This fight is against an entire system that has failed us. And people who are part of that failed system, who has taken endorsements from people who voted, the 8 people who voted to kind of not get what ACA was, this shutdown was going to provide to us, that same person is talking about my experience. And let me tell you, the people who are taking the fight, and the names that come to your mind: Pramila Jayapal, Congressman Ro Khanna, you have Delia Ramirez. I have earned endorsement from Congressman Ro Khanna, Congresswoman Delia Ramirez, Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal, and our own state senator, Christina Castro.
Thank you so much. Dan Tully.
Not to spoil the suspense, I'm going to save my closing argument for why I think I'm the best fit for facing the challenges. I just want to use the rebuttal round to respond to 2 of my colleagues. One, with all due respect to your service, Congresswoman Bean, you mentioned Iraq, and although you weren't there at the start of it, you were there during the sustaining of it, and you voted against the Democrats with the Republicans to against timetables to be placed on the war. I think that's relevant as we're talking about starting new wars in new places for more oil. And with respect to citing other endorsements, the Rokana's name was brought up not only right now but this week as the person who has benefited the most from insider trading this past year. I think we need to block insider trading across members of Congress, regardless of party.
Thank you so much. And then rounding us out, Melissa Bean.
Well, you asked why you think I'm the right person for the job. It's because I've done it and I delivered. And I did keep the promises that I made to this district to always be listening, to always be engaged, and to be indefatigable in my championship for the needs of the families in our district and across our nation. And I did vote with President Bush to make sure we up-armor vehicles for our troops who are already serving and for the men and women whose lives were in harm's way. So sometimes I differed with Democrats, but that was the right thing to do when I did it. And I worked with both presidents. I worked with President Bush, I worked with President Obama, and I was able to get things passed in both cases. Internet child safety with President Bush, Obamacare, and so much more with President Obama. And let me just finish this point. It
Your
may
time
seem,
has elapsed.
as a
I'm
form
sorry.
of rebuttal, you said the reason it feels like the golden years when Obama was there is because we got things
Your time has elapsed.
done.
But we're going to move on to our next segment, which is about healthcare. The Commonwealth Fund says that the United States ranks last among wealthy countries on the issue of healthcare. In our country right now, we pay nearly double the cost of other wealthy nations, but consistently rank at the bottom in performance, access, health equity, outcomes, and life expectancy. People are dying because they can't afford healthcare in a country that spends more per capita as a percentage of GDP than any other country, than any other wealthy country. Recently, this issue has been magnified as the Republican Party's flagship Big Beautiful Bill is estimated to remove anywhere from 11 million to 17 million Americans off of their healthcare thanks to Medicaid cuts. Beyond that, healthcare premiums are rapidly increasing. The New York Times is reporting that 1.4 million fewer people enrolled in the Affordable Care Act due to premium hikes and expired tax credits and subsidies. Now, while the House has passed a bill extending subsidies for 3 years, its fate does still remain uncertain as it goes to the Senate. It seems as though there's really no plan for healthcare in our country right now as we speak. We have Band-Aid solutions to a gaping wound. How do you plan on mitigating the adverse effects of the current healthcare crisis we find ourselves in? People want to know exactly how their tomorrow is going to be better. And for this round, we are going to start with Yasmin Ben-Kole.
Junaid, I proudly stand on the shoulders of U.S. Senator Dick Durbin, who has been an effective, common sense leader for the state of Illinois for decades. He is an honorable and decent and good man, and he is more than just one vote. And I stand on that, and I will continue to stand on that. He has been a leader that has led in so many different ways. It's why I'm so proud to have his endorsement, and I hope to continue his legacy in the halls of Congress. To be a good legislator, you must know that we are all more than just one vote. We are more than just our jobs as well. Sometimes we don't get it right, but that's what being a good leader entails. As it relates to healthcare, I would be a champion for universal healthcare. We desperately need healthcare reform in this country. Healthcare is a luxury. So many of us would rather Uber to the hospital in times of need than take an ambulance. So
Thank you so
I'm out
much.
of time, but that's where
Thank
I'll
you.
stop.
Junaid, you're next.
Maybe people should Google her statement after the vote that Senator Durbin said. I love Senator Durbin, but look at the statement that she has released. I think that's important for people to do it. Here she's saying she's proud of it. On that day when she released the statement, you were not proud of it, but that's okay. Healthcare. When my son was
continue
I'm
What?
sorry.
to stand
I'm sorry.
on
Yasmin,
my previous statement.
Yasmin,
I stand by
it is not
it.
your turn to speak.
You will
Please.
not
Yasmin,
attack
please.
our senior member
Excuse
of
me.
Congress.
It is not your turn to speak, Yasmin. Junaid, we can
May I
start.
start?
Yes.
Okay.
You may do.
When my son was in the hospital for one night and 2 days, our hospital bill my wife Shireen is here, was almost $10,000. $10,000. And when I thought we have the world's absolute best insurance, we need a long-term solution to our problems. Ishan, as you said it, Band-Aid solutions are not going to make things happen in the long run. We cannot sit here in a congressional debate 16 years, 18 years from now and still talking about these Band-Aid solutions. We need a permanent fix to healthcare. And I understand, as one of the 435 congresspeople there, it's not going to be an easy path. But guess what? That Medicare for All bandwagon is growing, and it's growing fast, and we will get more partners, and we will take every legislation that will take us closer to a single-payer Medicare for All, so that we do not, our future generations do not have to worry about
Thank you so
healthcare.
much. Thank you. Melissa Bean, you are next.
Is this one good? I refuse to refer to the Republicans' bill that Trump signed as the BBB bill by their definition. It was really the bought by billionaires bill. And to provide tax cuts to billionaires, they cut $1 trillion from Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act. And everyone here and around the country is going to suffer. It's not just the people in the exchange. And probably, as we've already heard, 30 million people are likely to not be able to continue having coverage because they've cut those tax credits. But when you take 30 million people out of the system, we all have to pick up the tab. There's so many other protections that are also under assault from the Republicans, because it wasn't just a give more coverage to more people bill, it was also an insurance reform bill. Insurance companies used to legally be allowed to cut people from their insurance after they paid premiums for 15 years, and they'd go back when they finally had a catastrophe and find something in their history and drop them. That became illegal, and we have to continue to fight for those protections, and I'm proud to have done so.
How are we going to fix it? We're going to win back the House, and we're going to immediately return and remove the cuts to Medicare and Medicaid. I kind of find it sweet about, holding people's word. Well, when I ran for county board, I ran on mental health. And what did I do? I created a brand new Department of Mental Health and Behavioral Health for our residents. We need to make sure that we see policies that get through our Congress that ensure affordable and accessible healthcare for all people. But your word is incredibly important. She said bought by billionaires. When she was in Congress, Melissa Bean was known as the darling of Wall Street. Look it up, there's articles. Also, she promised to our labor unions and went back and voted against their interests. Also, in terms of actually supporting healthcare for other individuals, are we going to trust an individual who is currently, raising millions of dollars and also gave herself $325,000, all while she lives in Quigley's district, and she voted against giving benefits to 9/11 first responders?
Thank you so much. Dan Tully.
We've already seen the Medicaid effects take effect in our district. Alexian Brothers in Elk Grove has already cut and shuttered its maternity ward because of those expected cuts. Now, I'm going to try to cover in the time that remains not only the fixes that we can address in the current system, but also the ideal future system. So the current system, there are a couple things that we could do. Number one, standardized provider codes. That would lower costs across the system. Right now, different providers have different codes, and it just drives up costs. Number two, have providers be required by law to disclose the prices they have. That allows a functioning market requires informed consumers. So if a consumer can tell that one provider charges X, another one provides Y, they can make a comparison. Number three, we should make sure that members of Congress get the same care in the VA healthcare system. That way we can increase the level of care in the VA healthcare system, as members of Congress aren't going to tolerate what's going on right now. And number four, lift the caps of Medicare on the number of people going through residency. Right now we have an artificial barrier to the number of doctors coming through the pipeline, and that's all because of a federal law that caps.
Thank you. Ryan?
So I'm not going to comment. I think a lot of us are arguing here on the stage, and as productive as that might seem, it's really not. I think that we have another party that we have to focus on, and the thing is, take healthcare. The question that you're asking, it's multifaceted, it's complex. I support Medicare for All. The term is a little convoluted because there's a lot of problems with it, but I support that issue because one thing was when I was overseas working in Austria, one of the first things that happened was I was given a healthcare card. And when I was there, I asked the other teachers, like, hey, what is this? Like, I don't really understand what this is. And it's like, hey, it's your healthcare card. If you get sick, you don't need to work, you get healthcare. It's like, we don't have this in the States. We're the richest country in the world, and we don't have free healthcare. We don't have universal healthcare to provide to our citizens when other countries do. Every single industrial country in the world does. And so I'm supporting this issue because it's complex and multifaceted, but I don't think you should run for Congress if you're not willing to tackle complex and multifaceted issues.
Thank you. And then Sanjo, Ryan
Thank you, and I would agree with Ryan. I'm absolutely willing to tackle complex issues, and not only that, but challenge the status quo. I certainly recognize, as all of you do, that the increasing health costs are a big burden. You heard me earlier talk about improving the poverty and income thresholds. One of the ways to do that, and the impact, would be to make sure that more people are eligible for Medicare at earlier ages. So I support Medicare for All as an option, making sure that people always have a safety net. You've heard a little bit about how AI is disrupting jobs. We want to make sure that we have that available. We want to cut the costs, so really addressing the pension, the middleman in all of the insurance processes. And the third thing that I would take a look at doing when I'm in Congress is allowing people to buy insurance across state lines to be able to reduce costs. Right now, it is a burden on both small businesses and on individuals that they are confined to exchanges that are very burdensome and expensive.
Thank you so much. And we're going to go into our 45-second rebuttal expansion round. Just building off of that, your vision for healthcare, if you want to outline a bit more of a longer-term idea, I guess. So we're going to start again with Yasmin.
Earlier there was some arguing, but I always think that it's important to stand up for yourself when people say things about you that are untrue. But I think it's more important that you have a member of Congress that stands up for you when it matters most. And I really believe that we've seen times where our politicians, both on the Democratic and Republican side, have failed to do so. When I think about healthcare, I think about the fact that we are the only industrialized nation in the world that does not have some form of universal healthcare. And that is because some of the members of Congress that talk about reform are also accepting contributions from insurance companies, right? And so I'm one of the few on the stage that is not accepting any corporate PAC dollars.
Thank you so much.
And I believe that that's important because we need to just not elect a Democrat to
we are
the
going
seat.
to move on
It needs to be
our
the
next
right
speaker.
Democrat.
Junaid.
I support universal health care, and I will support every legislation that will take us an inch closer to that, towards that path. We are the only industrialized nation, the richest country on the planet. I was in Germany once talking to this guy who is like in their 20s. Like, there is no healthcare. There is no healthcare cost. There is no college education cost. We need to divert our money from foreign wars, from unnecessary bombing, bring it back to basic necessities that this nation needs. Bring it back to healthcare, bring it back to college education, and we must start with reversing the cuts that Donald Trump has done. I am saying we need to start with some basic fights here.
Thank you. Melissa Bean?
I was proud to vote for Obamacare. It was controversial at the time. The Republicans said a lot of crazy things. There were going to be death panels and you were going to have to wait in line and never get your coverage. All of that was not true. I knew I could lose my seat. I voted for it anyway. I thought it was the right thing to do, and I'd do it again. I'm really proud of what we did accomplish. There was initially 30 million people who became part of the covered pool of Americans who hadn't had it prior. Now we have over 60 million. Many of them are likely to lose it because of the Republicans' cuts. Another thing I was proud of is that the bankruptcies in this country, one of the #1 causes of bankruptcy was because of one healthcare catastrophe, which is a uniquely American phenomenon. After we passed the ACA, those started to drop. You can literally see it go down.
Thank you.
Until the Republicans
Thank
got
you
rid of
so
the
much.
mandate,
We're gonna-
and young people started
Thank you
to
so
see
much.
it go back up.
We're going to move on to our next speaker, Kevin Morrison.
Honesty is key. Former Congresswoman Melissa Bean is running saying that she lost because she voted for the ACA. There are people in this room today that protested outside of her office because she had to have her feet held to the fire to vote for the Affordable Care Act. I also support Medicare for All or any pathway to healthcare access that is affordable for all of our residents. I've studied all the programs that exist in Europe. Any one of them would work better than what's happening here. We are predicted within the next 4 years to have 6,500 physician vacancies in the state of Illinois alone. So even if you have healthcare, you might not be able to get a doctor. That means we need to be investing in every single degree in which we're going to have life-saving vacancies predicted in the healthcare realm.
Thank you so much. Dan Tully.
The fundamental problem in the American healthcare system is that for too many people, your healthcare coverage is dependent on your employment. That leads to there being too many payors in the healthcare system, which disperses negotiation leverage, thereby allowing corporations, whether they be insurance companies, hospital companies, or drug companies, to charge as much as they want. What we need to do is consolidate payor into one single responsible payor. That means the government. I support universal healthcare coverage and agree that's the direction we need to head. I'm cautious about Medicare for All because in its current formulation, it extends Medicare Advantage programs. Now, some people have good experience with Medicare Advantage, others find them predatory, and I want to fix those problems before we expand it out to the entire country. The other thing I don't like about Medicare for All in its current formulation is that it envisions the Secretary of Health and Human Services to be at the top. We don't want
Thank you.
RFKs to be making decisions
Thank you
for
so
all of
much.
us.
Thank you. Ryan?
When I was at the Department of Justice, I mentioned that we prosecuted school shootings, international terrorist attacks, as well as the January 6th insurrectionists. But we also, the person who shot the CEO of United Healthcare, that also was our office as well. And it was appalling when I was in Washington, seeing the views of everyone about that shooting. Everything that you see on the news, that came straight to my desk. And when I was reading the reports on that shooting, it's wretched. People are angry, and they were also happy that this person was shot, and for good reason. They're justified in their anger because healthcare is so not functioning here in this country.
Thank you. Sanja?
Thank you. We've heard a lot about healthcare and particularly how it affects Medicare and Medicaid. I'm going to take it a little bit broader and share a little bit about my personal experience, one of the real reasons I'm also running. I took care of my mother. She had a rare form of muscular dystrophy. And I saw firsthand just how hard it is for people to live and age with dignity in their home. We can fix that. We penalize our middle-class families, make just a little too much money, and you don't get any services, you don't get assistance with your medication. We do not need to make people feel that they have to be destitute to get help, to take a shower, to get a meal, to get assistance in their home, to get that additional prep. So I'm really fighting to make sure that everybody who wishes to live and age with dignity in their home will have the resources
so much.
under Medicare.
Thank you. Moving on to our final segment for tonight, it's the direction of the country. A recent poll shows that 76% of Americans believe democracy is under serious threat. Yet at the same time, the Democratic Party's approval rating sits at also just 27%, which is lower than President Trump's. Since the 2024 loss, Democrats have been searching for what went wrong and how to rebuild trust with voters. One strategy seems to be emerging is running candidates who brand themselves as fighters. We saw that play out last November when Abigail Spanberger and Zoran Mamdani, two different ends of the Democratic Party spectrum, won on the same night with very different backgrounds but similar messages. So when Democrats talk about being fighters, and some of you have referred to yourselves as fighters, what does that actually look like? Does that mean impeaching President Trump, confronting him head on, systemic change, or something else entirely? And how do you plan on communicating that in this 2026 campaign? We're going to start with Junaid Ahmed for this question.
We have knocked as a campaign about 16,000 doors so far. I have personally spoken to hundreds of people, and that theme, Ishan, that you mentioned is very loud and clear. The people of this district wants a fighter to go to DC and represent them. That's the consistent voice. And for you to figure out who is the fighter amongst this 8 good people here, all you gotta do is look back a couple of years. When I believed in something, I took on a stance, and I took on an establishment. When people told me I was crazy to take on that fight, but I did. And when the fight ended, we shook hands and we came together to make things happen for the betterment of this country, betterment of this district. And that's the fighter who I am. I am not a career politician. I have taken a public oath to not accept corporate PAC money. I will be beholden to the people
Thank you
of
so
this
much.
district.
Thank you. Dan?
The reason we lost in 2024 is because more people voted for the other side than for our side. It's as simple as that. And how do we win going forward? We get more people to vote our way. Now, how does that happen? Well, we go to them and figure out what happened. It's not too hard to understand, though, that they thought the messaging from the Democratic Party was not focused on them. We, as a Democratic Party, have been focused on a lot of important issues, but those important issues directly impacted the lives of a relatively smaller group of people. And we were neglecting to talk about issues that impacted a broad swath of the population. What we need to do going forward, if we're going to revitalize our party, is talk about when we're campaigning in a general election, things that ways we can improve lives for all Americans, and then we can win. We can get into office and then make policy changes that benefit the smaller groups that need a specific policy changes. That's the recipe for winning. So when I'd hope to earn your vote, I'd like to be able to engage again what I call domestic diplomacy. Go out and take the message to people who voted a different way, but not hold it against them. Extend a hand to welcome them back into the Democratic Party.
Thank you. Sanjay?
Thank you. As somebody who's actually been doing this for the last 7 or 8 years, focused on flipping red to blue, that means going from Republican to Democratic races in Illinois and around the country. This is an issue that I'm well versed on. Really focusing on how do we build bridges with people who may differ with us on some issues, but really agree with us on the majority. Most Americans want higher wages. They believe in a higher minimum wage. Most Americans want to make sure that we have sensible gun control. Most Americans want healthcare to be affordable and accessible. These are not red or blue issues. And when we start to talk to one another and to focus on shared values, leadership and fighting is really about being responsible, common sense, responsible change. I'm the person who leads from ahead, really about making sure that we listen, collaborate, and deliver results, because that's the only thing that people vote for. And we need to make sure that we rebuild the majority, and that's the way I believe we can do that.
Thank you so much. Ryan Bedeked?
The state of the Democratic Party was the reason I jumped into this race in the first place. I've said before, running for Congress isn't very fun, and I was really proud of the work that I was doing in Washington. But the reason I chose to resign is because of what I saw here back home in this district, and I saw the folks who are running. I think age is a really, really important issue to talk about within the state of the Democratic Party. The median age of members of Congress is 55. Like, I think that's a problem when most of this country has different, it varies in that age. In 2024, people say that we just lost an election. We lost everything. We lost the popular vote, all 7 swing states, and the presidency. That's not a Democrat. That's a Democratic Party problem. And so I think we really need to address it and try to figure out how to talk to people and figure out what went wrong in that election. Take the economy, for instance.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll talk about that later.
Melissa Bean?
I think there's too much talk about fighting in politics. Government is to serve the people. Congress was created to be the most representative body of government, and it can be. I believe in that, and I've done it. The job is listening, problem solving, working really hard, consensus building. Yes, working across the aisle. I was very good at that and got things done. Sometimes I even brought baked goods into the Republican cloakroom to get them to pay attention to me, but I got them to co-sponsor my bill, and I got stuff passed even when I was in the majority. We can't wait for the majority to get everything done, but we get a lot more done because Democrats believe in the power of government. So I'm a workhorse, not a show horse. So I don't agree with politicians who promise things they know they can't deliver or are constantly fist waving about I'm going to fight, but they don't have any real solutions. I brought that consensus building from my work in the private sector, in my leadership roles, in building teams and making things happen. And that's what I'll do again.
Thank you so much. Yasmin Benkole.
There has been a lot of talk about being a fighter, and it is literally because the country is on fire right now. And so I strongly disagree with the fact that was mentioned before, that we don't need fighting right now. We do need a fighter, but we also need a fighter that knows how to deliver and has a proven track record of getting things done. Just in my local capacity, I currently serve with the Republican mayor, and I've done that for the past 5 years, and I've still been able to get ordinances passed. There are many things that we don't agree on, but we have still been able to work together for the good of the people. I've also been able to help craft legislation, the Postal Police Reform Act, the Social Security Fairness Act that passed last year. Behind the scenes, many of us in Senator Durbin's office were able to make sure that he was on board for that, and that impacted and benefited our teachers, our firefighters, our police, many people in this room. And so we can't just talk about fighting, we also need to deliver.
Thank you so much. Kevin Morrison.
You know, the fact is we need a new generation of leadership in Congress. I'm 35 years old, I'm a millennial, I grew up in the 8th Congressional District, and I have been dedicated my entire life to these communities. When I ran in 2018, I knocked 46,000 doors. I ended that campaign with 3 herniated discs. I consistently want to show up and hear from my constituents, to hear what issues are important to them. And why are the Democratic Party failing right now? We have a messaging problem. Too many of our elected officials are beholden to wealthy interests and their donors, and not to the constituents they were elected to represent. That's what I am committing to you. You send me to Congress, I'm gonna continue to show up at rallies, protests, forums, and I'm gonna hold regular town halls, and I'm gonna make sure that I have a state-of-the-art constituent services operation in my office, like I do as a county commissioner, to make sure that when you have questions or need assistance, you actually get a response.
Thank you so much. And then going into our rebuttal round, we are going to start with Junaid Ahmed.
Problem solving, one of the qualities of a congressman that was brought up earlier. I'm proud to say that my job is problem solving. I am paid to solve business problems and give solutions. I'm temporarily brought on to different companies and I solve the problem, and that's what pays the bills for my daily bread and butter. I'm proud to have that quality. But on top of that, I am the guy who has been on the streets of Schaumburg, on the streets of Elgin, and I'm the guy who will take that voice of everybody who is sitting in this room, everybody who is watching online, everybody who wants something good for this country, who wants to see sanity back. That fighter, I will be that. I'll take your voices from the streets of Elgin, streets of Schaumburg, to the halls of Congress. Thank you.
All right, Dan Talley.
Well, one last note I would say about fighting is I would interpret fighting as zealous advocacy. And that's something that I can provide as an attorney, but really want to zoom out and see, looking at the conditions in which we find ourselves being driven to fight. We are in a hyper-partisan environment, partly because we have very gerrymandered districts all across this country. What we need is to have a nationwide compact of all states to say that there will be independent redistricting commissions after this next census, so the 32 election will have districts that are drawn regardless of whether right now in our current system, our politicians choose which voters they want, not the other way around. We need to flip that back so that the districts are more competitive, which means that the people will be more vulnerable to being ousted out of in the next election if they're not responsive to their constituents. I think overall that would change the structural framework of our democracy to make sure that we don't need term limits if we have actual competitive elections every 2 years.
Thank you. Sanjot.
Thank you. I think one of the first steps to actually being able to rebuild trust is to deliver for everybody, not just the folks who vote for you, but for everyone in the district. Something that I'm hearing when I'm out talking to people is they really appreciate that I'm a small business owner. I'm willing to think outside the box, and in fact, my company was recognized by Fast Company as one of the most innovative. I've already received that acknowledgement of that willingness to challenge the status quo. My ability to be effective, I'm endorsed by Aspire, which are all of the Asians in Congress, and endorsed by Vote Common Good, because it's about doing what's right, country over party, and country over everything else. As a military mom, I really want to make sure that we are doing right by our military families and everybody in our community. People appreciate that I'm a mom, caregiver, small business owner with federal experience, and they know that I'm very focused on listening, collaborating, and delivering solutions, short, medium, and long term. In fact, I give my cell phone to everybody, so feel free to grab a card.
Ryan?
Thank you.
So you're hearing a lot of folks talk about endorsements. I'm endorsed by this person. I'm endorsed by this person. Well, I think that's part of the problem. I think when this notion of endorsements is just one politician handing the torch to another politician, and it just continues this perpetual cycle of the same types of folks getting into office. I think we just need a clean slate. I think we need just someone who knows policy issues and is willing to fight for them. I've mentioned my work at the DOJ. When we were working on the January 6th insurrectionists, when we were working on those prosecutions, when the new administration came in, Pam Bondi, she walked into the office, she shook my hand, and then fired my boss. That was largely the reason I resigned from that position, because I disagreed with what this administration was doing. I'm the only one on the stage that has experience prosecuting these folks, and I'm willing to take that to Congress.
Thank you, Ryan. Melissa Bean.
Well, since you mentioned endorsements, I am proud of the fact that Nancy Pelosi has endorsed me, Steny Hoyer, Tammy Duckworth, Bill Foster, Brad Schneider, Steny Hoyer, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and others. And I don't think it's because we were friends. We worked together. And Nancy does not get involved in all the races. She got involved because she thought I was the right person to come back, and she was proud of the work that we did together, and she knew she could count on me. So I will mention that. Also proud to get Chicago Firefighters Union and elect Democratic women, and more union endorsements to come.
Thank you so much. Yasmin Benkole.
I also am really proud of the endorsements that I've had. I believe that endorsements show community trust. They show community buy-in, and so although I haven't been, I'm really proud of the endorsements that I've really received from everyday people, like IBEW Local 701. They represent electricians. NALC, the Letter Carriers Union, they represent letter carriers. I received the statewide endorsement for the firefighters, so electricians, firefighters, letter carriers, everyday people. I am so proud of that, because that is who I have dedicated this race to, is the middle class. I also just want to briefly state that when
Thank you. Your time has elapsed. Okay. Kevin Morrison.
Well, I am proud of my endorsements as well. I think out of all the open congressional races in the state of Illinois, I have earned the most. I have over 180 endorsements, including Congresspeople Eric Sorensen and Mike Quigley here in Illinois. I'm proud to be endorsed by Equality PAC and most of the mayors in the 8th Congressional District. And they've endorsed me because they say that out of all the candidates on this stage, I'm the only one they're certain that if I miss the call, they're guaranteed a call back. There are also people in this room who are not endorsing me because they're worried about the self-funders and multimillionaires on this stage as well. Melissa Bean gave herself $325,000. Dan Tully gave himself $500,000. Sure, that would be nice and swell if I could do that. And Junaid has a lot of wealthy friends. It shouldn't be about that. It should be about the grassroots.
Thank you, Kevin. Your time has elapsed. All right, candidates, this has been a marathon, and we are going to close this show with concluding statements. You will have a whopping 75 seconds for this one, guy. All right. Starting us off for our closing statements, we have Melissa Bean.
Thank you. You've done a great job. When I first ran for office, the American dream was under threat. Now it's slipped almost entirely out of reach, and our American values are also under egregious assault. I listened to your concerns across the district: teachers, working families, union workers, first responders, students, and seniors, and I had the privilege of bringing your voices to Washington. Together, we made a lot of progress. I'm the only candidate in this race to write and pass legislation on behalf of the 8th District, and those laws have helped make Americans safer and more secure. But those protections and securities are under the kinds of attacks we never thought we'd see in America. That's why I'm running again, to not just be your advocate, but to fight back against an executive branch that is causing chaos and danger on our streets. But to do any of that, we have to take back the majority in Congress and restore our Constitution, and that means electing candidates that can win in November. In just a few weeks, voters will have a choice to elect a representative with experience, leadership, and results. That's the kind of leader I've been and the kind of leader you can count on when you send me back to Washington. I'm humbly asking for your vote on March 17th. Thank you, and I did it under time.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. Kevin Morrison.
You know, at 27 years old, I ran against the chairman of the Illinois Republican Party and flipped a district blue for the first time in history. I'm ready to make history once again. Chicago and the surrounding suburbs have never had an openly LGBT member of Congress. In the back, my fiance, Ethan's here. My lead inspiration in life, what inspired me to public service, my mom and my stepfather are right up here. You know, watching my mom run a small business and giving back to the community around it is what made me want to give back to the communities around me. I don't think we should be sending another multimillionaire to Congress. We should be sending someone who's running a grassroots operation who wants to actually fight for the voters, who they're supposed to represent, and that's my commitment to you. Send me to Congress, I'll do exactly what I did as commissioner. I'll keep to my word and get things done. I was 27 years old. People thought I wouldn't even know where the bathrooms were in the county boardroom. I made mental health and behavioral health access all around this county. We are making it easier for small businesses to open. I made reproductive health care and gender identity protected classes for 5.2 million people. These are issues that our voters want to see fought for and made national, and I want to do that work for you. I'm running a grassroots campaign. It's predominantly small dollars. Join me at Kevin Morrison for Congress.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ryan Vedikat.
So when you think about this race, I want you to think about two things: the symbol of what we send to Washington and how this person is going to run their office. I'm sitting on the stage with politicians, and they're going to run this office like a politician. I'm sitting on the stage with business leaders, businessmen, and they're going to run their office like a business. And then you have me, this 24-year-old counterterrorism analyst trying this thing. And I think that I would run my office. Sure, it's going to be a little chaotic, a little messy, but it's going to be full of dynamic policy solutions and young people running around trying to make your life better. I'm the 24-year-old who graduated college in 2 years in the middle of a pandemic, the 24-year-old who went overseas as a Fulbright scholar, the 24-year-old who got a graduate degree from the University of Chicago, and the 24-year-old who stopped terrorist attacks at the DOJ. If I've done all of this at the age of 24, imagine what I'll continue to do for you in Congress. People have been arguing about endorsements. The only endorsement that I have is you and the community that raised me, the community that taught me that I can do anything and I can do it for you. So thank you, and visit me at grindforillinois.com. I really hope to earn your vote in March.
Thank you so much. Yasmin Bankole.
I am running for Congress to be a part of the next generation of leaders that leads with integrity and courage and experience, but also prioritizes stopping Trump and reprioritizing the middle class. There are many things that I would love to champion in Congress: healthcare, education, Social Security, Medicare, immigration. We've talked about so many of those things tonight, but I do not believe that those things will happen if we do not oppose the things that we see every day and hear about on the news. I'm not running to be a leader in the Democratic Party. I'm running to be a leader in the opposition party, because we need opposition in the next 3 years. opposing the rogue ICE agents that are terrorizing our communities, opposing the cuts to Medicaid, opposing the usage of bombs being dropped in countries in the middle of the night. We must oppose these things, and we must do so with force and willpower and smart decisions. You know, I really believe that it's not about just electing a Democrat to this seat. It's about electing the right Democrat. And we have...
Thank you so much.
I will just close by saying that I'm so proud to be doing this.
We're going to move on.
And I hope to make you proud in the halls of
Thank
Congress.
you so much, Yasmin.
Thank you.
Sanjot Denon.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much for listening and for your participation, for the audience questions, for all of that. As somebody who is both an educator and a social scientist, along with some of the other things that you heard, a private small business owner, a mom, and somebody who took care of her parents, as a social scientist, I spend a lot of time thinking about the future. 2 years, 4 years, 10 years, 15 years. And I ask all of you, what kind of a future do you want to be leaving your children, your grandchildren? What kind of a future do you want for yourself? That's what I'm focused on. We need to be talking about thinking out of the box, which you've already heard me say. That's what I love to do. I would say that as a business person, I'm very focused on fiscal responsibility. I hear that from people in our district. We want to make sure that we're spending our money wisely. Smart investments in education and vocational training. Smart investments in making sure we have better energy sources in the climate. Smart investments in our science and technology. People understand that lived experience is very important. I agree. As somebody who has living and is currently living with both kids who have gone through student loans and are struggling to figure out how to buy that first house, and most recently
Thank you
with
so
parents.
much, Sanjot.
Thank you.
Thank you. Junaid Ahmed.
I am running to protect the American dream that my dad had for me, that every young person has that dream that can be realized. And we have, through our advocacy, through our community work, through our being on the streets, we have built a very strong community. And I will share this. We talked about raising money. The first quarter, when we closed our first quarter, just shy of 90% was in-state. Just shy of 60% was in-district money. That's the kind of network, that's the kind of friends that we have built that are gonna stand up for us. And I realized that as a freshman, it's gonna be a lot of work to do that. We have started that work. I'm proud to announce that I am endorsed by Congressional Progressive Caucus that consists of 100 congresspeople plus Bernie Sanders. All that is good. I humbly ask you to please endorse me. That is the most valuable endorsement I can possibly get. JunaidForUS.com. My name is Junaid Ahmed, and I would love to get your endorsement, and I would love to be at your service. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Dan Tully.
Kevin is right that I'm one of 6 people in this race who have put our own money into this campaign. And I put money that I raised, that I earned myself as an attorney. I hadn't been a politician for 8 years. I've never raised money before. It's really awkward to ask somebody for money, but I'm doing it now. And yet I put everything that I own into this race. I sold it all. I have $100 left. Win or lose, I will have $100 on March 18th in my bank account. I hope that's a testament to how firmly I believe that I have the skills to help in this moment of crisis for this country. And you know what, the thread that ties everything together that we've discussed, whether that's healthcare, the economy, immigration, it's the law. And to be a lawmaker, I think it's really important to have experience practicing the law, especially when this president is using the law, either weaponizing the law, ignoring the law, or acting outside of the law with impunity. And we need somebody with legal experience. Also, more and more, this president is taking actions that have global consequence, using the military to express his imperial aspirations around the world. Now, I'm the only person on the stage with military experience, and I think that's really increasingly important. And to use, I hope that you saw that I have specific ideas of what we can do in Congress to use all constitutional tools available to us to take back this, to take back the country and restore the rule of law. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Wow, we made it, guys. We did it. Give a big round of applause to our candidates here. Thank you so much to our candidates for being here today. Thank you so much to all of you and for your questions. I also just want to thank a few more people: Addison Township Democrats, Addison Township Young Democrats, Barrington Area Democrats, Cook County Young Democrats, Elk Grove Township Democrats, Elk Grove Township Indivisible, Greater Palatine Area Democrats, Maine Township Democrats, Schaumburg Area Democrats, Wheeling Township Democrats, and the Young Democrats of Illinois for putting together this entire program. Thank you so much to National India Hub for providing us this space and giving us this awesome stage. Thank you so much to Lindsay, our timekeeper. I kept bobbing my head back and forth over here, kept us on clock. And thank you so much to my Ishan Show team who are bringing this to you guys live. This has been an amazing experience. I know the 8th District is better off to hear live from our candidates. Thank you so much and good night.
Now he was with Alex.
It's called K.
Actually, my show is hosting this, and they call the groups I'm listening.
K. Midnight. Oh, we're good. Let's go. Let's do it. Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Candidates for the 8th District, if you guys could, we apologize if you could come on back so we can get a group photo. We forgot to get that at the end. So candidates who are on stage, if you could come on back so we can get a group photo before you all leave. Thank you so much.
One more time, candidates for the 8th District, if you are running to represent this district, please come back on stage. We want to get a photo. And a special thank you to Rupesh Brumbat for supporting us with our audio today. If you are watching this live, we are making sure you can hear us. Thank you so much.
I really liked it. I really liked it. I feel well informed now. And it's most candidates you could definitely agree with. General consensus that Melissa Bean ideals of like having the American dream, going to America for a dream.
સ્પીકરમાં જ હા જે હોય સ્પીકરમાંથી આવે હા ડાયરેક્ટ કનેક્ટ નથી કર્યું લર્નિંગ મોડ કોના દે પડો નહીં મારે તમારી
So, in today's 2026 watch, we are coming back here to Illinois to one of the congressional races, actually a different race from what we've traditionally been covering here on the show. Today, we're going to the 5th congressional district, where we are going to be talking to one of the candidates that you might have seen on the Illinois Candidate Forum that I moderated early November. It was a great conversation with a lot of different candidates running for all these different spots. And it was such a great, talk about all these things. And so one of those participants on that forum is joining me here today, here to talk about his run for Congress in the 5th District, his background, the headlines, and a lot more. I am joined by candidate for Congress, Johnny Antonio Bishop. Johnny, thank you for joining us here today on the Ishan S. Show.
Absolutely. Great to be here.
It's great to have you on. Before we get into our interview today, why don't you take a couple of minutes to introduce yourself to my audience?
Absolutely. Yeah. So my name is Johnny Bishop. I am a teacher, union leader, and community activist. But above all, I'm just a regular person. I believe that we deserve better than what we're receiving. And frankly, I think we also kind of deserve everyday people to represent everyday people. So my campaign really just tries to make sure that, regular people have a voice and they can have some hope in this current political system where a lot of the things that happen, I think, are just so exclusive and operate within like an insular environment where only the handpicked people really get to run and really get to have a voice. So in everything that I do, I try and make sure that I am uplifting everyone. From my background as a public school teacher, I recognize that the importance of just trying to make sure that everyone has a great chance to be successful and to live a good life.
That's great to hear. I have to say, I have a deep respect for public school teachers. I'm a product of public school myself, so I've seen that work. I kind of worked a little bit in that environment many years ago in, doing work with teachers and that sort of thing. So I have a lot of respect. That's the long story of it. For the work that you guys do, I think a few months ago, I had on another candidate for Congress out in Texas. He's also a public school teacher. And we had a really good conversation about public education and the role that Congress is going to play in challenging this administration, and really the political climate around it, because I'm sure you can attest to it. It is not a particularly easy time to be a public school educator. So I would love to talk about all of that as well. So we'll get into that in just a few, but I want to start with the 5th District. I think you are the first candidate running in the 5th District that I've had on here this show. So introduce us a little bit to the 5th. What kinds of cities are in it? How big is it? Tell us a little bit. Just tell us a little bit about the district that you are running to represent.
Yeah, absolutely. So the fifth district, the way that I kind of describe it is it looks like a skirt steak. It essentially slivers all the way from the north side of Chicago, basically all the way to Barrington, the suburbs of Chicagoland. And whenever part of running, you have to make sure that, you're kind of concentrating your efforts in specific areas. And the thing is, with the north side, you do have a lot of people from all over. And when I show people the district, I have to always preface it. I'm like, it is so gerrymandered. And as soon as they look at it, they're like, oh, yeah, I get it. And, when you kind of describe it and you talk about it is the north side of Chicago, but then somehow it makes its way, all the way to the suburbs. There is, some, not necessarily clandestine, but some, there's some reasoning behind that. Not sure behind it, but I think for me, it encompasses not just, working class individuals, but also a pretty variety in terms of demographics. There's a significant Latino population in there. And I think what it does in some ways is it brings people together in a way that you don't necessarily see in other districts. I think there's a combination of a variety of different people from different identities and makes it very diverse, which, I love. Me, myself, being a diverse individual, I'm a mixed race individual. So realistically, I'm kind of excited. And to kind of get more into the nitty gritty with the district on the north side, it's basically from Old Town, which is just by North Avenue Beach. And then it goes all the way to Wrigleyville. And then it starts to jet west and then, all the way to the suburbs.
It's so strange. And you pointed out just how strangely drawn some of these districts are. I don't know. Hot take. I don't think a person should represent Chicago and the suburbs in the same district. I think they're very different. And I'm sure as you've been knocking on doors in the community, they're very different priorities and very different views and all these sort of things. Maybe it's better not to, give crayons to a kindergartner and tell him to draw a map. But, this is where we are. So tell me a little bit about what voters in the 5th District have been telling you at the doors, at events. What are the biggest issues that voters here are thinking about?
I think it really revolves around a couple specifically, one being affordability. Everyone, is struggling. Realistically, I think it's over 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. Only 1 in 4 households can afford a new home. And everyone is just trying to make it by. And when I get to talk to people, what they enjoy about my campaign is the fact that I'm authentic. I like to tell people about my background and also my vision for what we can do with this campaign and what it really represents. And I believe that we deserve an everyday person to represent everyday people. And if you want the change that we so desperately need, we're going to need regular people that actually are facing the issues that we're witnessing right now. One other thing is student loan debt. I know a lot of people on the north side that went to college. And, the thing is, we did what society had told us, essentially. I remember when I was in elementary school, there was this program called No Excuses University. And, that's a good thing, having people think about a future, right? But in my mind, even when I was a teacher, I couldn't get myself to just blanketly say, go to college. I wanted kids to really find out what they wanted to do. So wherever they went, they really had not just intrinsic motivation, but also extrinsic motivation to try and build something that was livable. I also think that realistically, with the mass burden that is student loan debt, it is detrimental to almost every aspect of our lives, right? We can't afford to really save for retirement. We can't really start a family. Some people want to move into, bigger homes, buy houses, and we aren't able to do that because so many people are just struggling to pay those student loans. I want I think we need to rethink our public education system, but also we need to fix the student loan crisis, our student loan debt crisis, and provide people with relief.
Oh, with that student loan crisis that you're mentioning, and I can attest to it myself, I am very much in that situation right now and very much dealing with what that looks like. And I know people that are much older than I am that are still thinking about it, and it horrifies me, the thought of all of that. The Biden administration, when they were in power, tried to do something with it. Supreme Court, if you want to call it the partisan court, that's what I call it. They didn't really sign on to it. They kind of shut it down. Then the Biden administration tried to do something with student loans. It wasn't as substantive as I think people would have liked. So as you look at this issue, and it's probably the most pertinent part of education, I think, one of the biggest discussions of education, on one hand, the administration trying to dismantle the Department of Education, which is the primary funneler, I don't know if that's a word, but primarily funnels those student loans. And then on the other hand, you have policies that have been tried but just don't work. How do you see dealing with the issue of student loans, and how do you communicate that with people in the 5th District?
I think one of the big issues, like our tax dollars aren't being used on things that benefit everyday people. One of the things that happened that led to the increase in tuition prices and overall cost of education was the essential transfer of funds that were primarily being delegated or appropriated to the states to invest in their public education systems, right? So once you start to see, it kind of started in the 80s when less money was going toward public universities and colleges. So as time went on, that money was never, appropriated again. So then we started to see these skyrocketing costs for college and universities. So you sometimes hear, if you talk with your grandparents, whatever, when I went to college, it was only this and that, a couple $100. And if they really saw like our financial statements for education, they would lose their minds. Even like room and board is like $8,000, $10,000.
Crazy.
Yeah. So it all really kind of adds up, and I think it's just the money isn't going to the place that it needs to be going. And I think that's an issue of just inefficiency. I think, realistically, there's some backdoor dealings that are happening where, to make sure that funding isn't going where it needs to go. But I also think it's just a complete failure that we as a country recognize that education is the foundation of our civilization, of our society. And yet we talk about it in so many ways and we say how much we love it, but where's the action? Where's the urgency?
I totally agree. You put it really well. So I guess I want to stick to this topic of education because it's not something I get to talk about a lot, and I have someone with that background, so I want to take advantage of your experience here. So with what this administration is doing, they've done a lot. They've done a lot of things. Higher education has been particularly harmed. And then that's kind of the base of experience that I speak from under this presidency. But I know that they're also affecting K through 12. I talk to teachers a lot, and I hear the problems that are precipitating every single day. What are your thoughts on what this administration specifically has been doing to education in this country? I mean, wherever that may be, higher education, K through 12. But what do you think that impact is going to be on so many kids and students for years to come?
Yeah, I think it's the biggest contradiction that not enough people are pointing out, that the Republican Party runs on free speech, but then they come in and they say, okay, actually, we're not really believers in that realistically. And they kind of tailor whatever they believe is acceptable and then use that as a baseline. Like, for example, I saw in Florida, now they're using PragerU in classrooms, which is absolutely like mind boggling just to think about. It's insane. But, my background is specifically in the humanities. I'm a history guy, right? So what I kind of always realized was that humanities and liberal arts kind of got, you know, pushed to the side while we focus more on math and science, which, you know, I have friends who are math and science teachers. Shout out to them. Incredibly, incredibly important. But
Yeah.
the thing is, when we talk about history, right, and especially in this moment, if you look around and you pay, like, you know, just a little attention to everything that's happening, like, you recognize why knowing history is important. You know, determining the parallels to what happened before to today. You know, there's a long-standing quote that those that fail to know history are doomed to repeat it, right? And I think if we don't invest in history, social studies, other fields, other you know, different curriculum departments, essentially, I think we start to kind of fall behind. You know, when we kind of just box ourselves in and just say, "Hey, go into science. Hey, go into math." I think there is immense value in not just the social studies aspect, but you know, learning about the world and why everything exists the way that it does.
Again, totally agreed. I am not hardwired for math. As everyone that knows me can attest to it, I still count on my fingers sometimes. I am not designed for that. My mind is very much in the humanities as well. And having worked in this space, doing political media, where I do reach audiences who are not traditionally tapped into politics, oh boy, we need way more civic education. We need way more humanities education. I mean, the people I reach right now, they're lost causes maybe. But for all the young people right now that are in school, I think we need to really focus on educating them. Like and you put it perfectly. Those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. And some can argue that we're seeing that as we speak. So I think it is so incredibly important that we emphasize that. But I do want to switch gears a little bit, and I want to talk about a little bit more about the headlines and all the stuff that's been going on in the country. So one of the big things that we were talking about, I think the night of the forum that we were both in, we had a really interesting event unfold. I announced it as we were in the middle of it. I didn't know much about it at that point, but I did want to have a conversation with all of you about that. So that was about the government shutdown and how really the entire party, the Democratic Party, was not interested in capitulating. But then 8 Senate Democrats, including our senator here, Dick Durbin, not to just call him out specifically, but he did vote for it. They all voted to reopen the government, putting Obamacare subsidies, which was the entire point of this shutdown, in jeopardy. That conversation has been precipitating. We had the Epstein files kind of dominate the conversation for a couple of weeks, but this is what I think is the bigger story right now, which is those healthcare subsidies. So from that night when we last chatted to now, do you think it is appropriate? It was appropriate for those 8 Democratic senators, because I shouldn't say Democrats in general, the 8 Democratic senators that voted to lend Republicans those votes, reopen the government, and get some false promise potentially on those Obamacare subsidies? Or do you think that it was maybe 3D chess and somehow we're all missing the point here, and these 8 Democrats secretly have played everyone? What do you think of that?
I think it was a unique fight, realistically. I think obviously it's a gamble to trust Republicans in any sense, frankly. But I think in many respects, the fight that the Democrats took on with this shutdown kind of surfaced because Democrats weren't appealing to their voter base. Essentially, a lot of the electorate was like, Democrats aren't fighting for us. They aren't doing anything, right? And because they were hearing that, you know, and all their, you know, political consultants were like, hey, you got to do something. I think they decided to take on this fight, which is a worthwhile fight in many respects. Like, you are fighting for healthcare, which is essential to so many people. But I also think that the effort that they put toward this fight could have also been used in other fights throughout the year. I think that, there have been far too many Trump appointees that have been able to get Democratic votes, when we recognize that Trump is essentially creating an entire infrastructure with just yes men. So whatever that he wants, and realistically, it's also like, all of his little acolytes within his inner circle, they are essentially running the government, and they have very nefarious intentions. And I don't think that we should have allowed those individuals to become, or voted for by Democratic senators. I think there are other fights that Democrats should have taken on, and the shutdown was worthwhile. But I am also concerned with, the safety of everyday people. We witnessed, like, the FAA is talking about how every day, essentially, there are more and more cancellations. I believe there's a strike ongoing at one of the airports, and it is becoming increasingly more dangerous to fly. And we're right on the cusp of one of the busiest, traveling seasons. And I think, the shutdown and putting up a fight was good. But I think that energy has to be consistent, not just because it's good for the cameras. There are other places where they can also channel that energy. And I don't think it necessarily needs to be done where you put others in harm's way.
I mean, that's a fair point to point out, and I think there are still questions to be answered for sure on all of that, and I think the next shutdown battle, which is January, I think the end of January is what they kicked the can to. I mean, Congress be Congress, I guess. They kicked the can down to January 30th, so we'll be paying attention to that. But what is another discussion that is happening around, and I think it still sticks to that healthcare discussion, is, again, the continuing of the Obamacare subsidies. Like, even when they did reopen the government, there was Mike Johnson and John Thune's word that sometime next month there would be a vote on extending Affordable Care Act subsidies. Now we're hearing something completely different. Now we're hearing the Trump administration is trying to cook up a plan, but then Republicans flat out just said no, and then they took back the plan. Republicans have been talking for 15 years. I mean, this is like 3/4 of my lifetime about healthcare, when Democrats had it down 15 years ago with Obamacare. I mean, they didn't have it perfect, but they had a plan. They've been talking for 15 years about a plan, but they never get to that point. If you're running to be that next member of Congress, and you're going to have a voice, you'll be one of those 435 who gets to put some input, to have some input. And I think very likely Democrats will be in the majority in 2026, and so they get to shape some of that conversation. So when it comes to this issue of healthcare, this is going to be a two-part question. First, should people who are there right now extend those Obamacare subsidies a year, 3 years, just extend them? That's the first part. Second part is, what is the more realistic solution to this problem? Because those premiums are shooting up like crazy right now. And without the subsidies, if those don't get passed, then those premiums are going to feel even worse compared to what anyone has felt for the past 10 or so years. So how do we navigate that healthcare discussion?
I think with the ACA subsidies, we need to ensure that every person has access to affordable healthcare. So absolutely, I'd be totally in favor of making sure that people are able to have that resource. But then also, I think with the healthcare issue in this country, what we have so consistently done in terms of legislation that we pass is we keep on applying Band-Aids to wounds that have been made by a chainsaw, essentially. When we look at the issue of our healthcare system, the ACA was profound in what it was able to do, but it was also in some respects lackluster of that it didn't reach the ultimate goal of providing a single-payer healthcare system, universal healthcare for this country. Realistically, I think that is the direction that we're moving toward, and we need to fight for it tooth and nail. In the same way that Republicans are so consistent in what they fight for, and they are die hard in their efforts to privatize the government, their efforts to, one of their main things was to overturn Roe v. Wade. In the same way that they are so determined to do those things, we need to focus and say healthcare is our biggest issue. And every single Democrat across the entire country, if you want to run as a Democrat, it should be a prerequisite that you believe in universal healthcare. We need to have a unified goal, because if Republicans fight the same way for one particular issue, why can't we? They have some success with, getting things done, for getting things accomplished that they want. I think the one issue with Democrats is like people don't really see the value in voting for Democrats. Yes, it is better than Republicans, but what are they really getting for? How does it fix the material conditions that people are facing? And I think we need to work toward massive solutions to ensure that people are getting what they deserve, making sure their tax dollars are going toward things that actually benefit them, but also like giving them things that are common sense across the world. We are one of the only industrialized countries without universal healthcare.
So sticking to this point, I mean, all of what you have suggested is very important, but I'm sure you also recognize that a lot of the Democratic Party leadership is not receptive to what are some pretty basic ideas. I don't know if it's why this hesitancy comes in place, but I'm sure you realize that is a challenge. And you are also running against an incumbent in this race who has been in Congress for a bit. So when you are talking about these seemingly bold ideas relative to what we are offered right now, when you come in with these ambitious ideas, do you think that there's huge pushback? Do you think that pushback, I mean, I'm sure there's pushback, but is that pushback coming from the people, or does it come from those higher ups who in the party?
That's it. That's basically every single person that I meet on the street. They are in favor of universal health care. They are in favor of paid time off. They're in favor of maternity, paternity leave. The people want this. There is actually a fantastic documentary by Michael Moore who made the argument that the United States is a progressive country, right? Now, if you hear that on face value and you're looking around at the last 10 years of our country, you're like, I don't know. But when you look at overall, there are the policies that I just described are favorable amongst the majority of Americans. The only issue is that we have incumbents, we have people who are in power that realistically aren't serving the people. They're serving the corporations. In my mind, the United States essentially is a bunch of companies in a trench coat trying to pretend that they're a government. We are trying to exist when there's massive amounts of corruption that exists on both sides. And as much as we want to, coming from, the left, I know there's a lot of people that like to target Republicans and say, hey, look how corrupt they are, which is totally understandable. Yes, they 100% are. But we need to recognize that Democrats are also taking advantage of these things. And we are seeing that in real time when we can't get things that other countries have, when we can't see the use of our tax dollars toward things that we deserve that actually benefit us, then there is an issue. There's a disconnect. And it really is eroding the fabric of our country when we can't get basic solutions to the problems that we're facing. And this is life and death for so many people. Access to healthcare. Some people can't afford their medication. So when they don't want to go to the doctor because it's too expensive. For example, myself, I currently do not have healthcare. And whenever I get sick, it's a nightmare. I'm hoping that it's not as urgent that I have to go to, the ER or whatever. These are real issues that affect real people. And the people in office, especially members of Congress, they have fantastic health care. What about everyday people? What about regular working class people? Why do they deserve something better than what we're receiving?
Very true. And thank you for drawing that line. It's important that it gets drawn. I want to switch gears just a tiny bit, and I want to talk a little bit about the big ugly bill. It still sticks to this issue of healthcare, to be honest, but it's a bit more of a broad discussion about affordability in general. The big ugly bill, as a reminder for viewers who don't know, takes 17 million Americans off of their health care, robs millions of children of free school lunches, takes veterans and seniors off of vital food assistance. And again, as I have said repeatedly, I could go hours and hours and hours talking about how this bill damages our country in so many horrific ways. And so, Johnny, one of the questions that I've been asking guests on the show since, I guess, July, which feels like an eternity ago, but when they passed it back in July, one of the questions I've been asking every guest who's been on the show is, what specifically has caught your eye in the big ugly bill, and why is it that we shouldn't, why are more people talking about it? So please feel free to talk about whatever, but just raise awareness to something in the big ugly bill that we should be talking about.
Yeah, I think it's crazy that not enough people know that the big ugly bill, provided tax subsidies and tax breaks for people who purchase private jets. So you could essentially write off a private jet. The thing is, yeah, Republicans are so insistent and consistent with what their agenda is, right? And when they passed this bill, it was to lower taxes for the rich, right? That is their goal. That is their entire premise of existing, right? Other than also privatizing the government. But they are focused on that, right? And in the same way that Republicans, they will lie to their constituents. They'll say that we're going to lower taxes for everyone. We're going to, give you guys a make America great again, right? Or whatever. They consistently will only help the people that are funding their campaigns, funding their entire, operation. But they're focused on that issue, right? They're focused on lowering taxes, privatizing the government. And even when there were, the initial votes and discussions around the big ugly bill, there were some individuals within the Republican caucus that were like, I can't vote for this. Like, this is too far. And eventually they were able to rally enough votes to get it passed. And the thing is, like, Democrats need to have that energy. They need to focus on one particular issue and fight for it tooth and nail. And there are going to be some, people within the caucus that aren't 100% on board, but we need to be able to concentrate our efforts and to get things done. That is what the American people want. That is how you create an effective political movement, is when you can actually provide for the people. And Republicans have been able to provide for the rich. So what are the rich going to do? They've been incentivized now. They're going to continue to invest in Republicans because they got their money's worth, right? Now, same thing with Democrats. If we can provide massive legislation, massive policy initiatives, right, then we can see not only that people will vote Democrat, but we'll also see this reimagination of what the Democratic Party can do, what it exists in, not in the last 10 years, but what it is in this very moment, what we can actually do.
And I don't get why our side is not talking about it. Maybe it's that game recognizes game. And some of us see that Republicans, to their credit, they appeal to their constituency and they do the things for them. I don't get the point, to be honest, of selling yourself out like that. Like, what's the point of having the job then if, rich folks are just going to tell you what to do? But at least, hey, they say something, they do something. There's another side where we don't have an opposition party. We have a sits around and watches party. So maybe it is just a reality that only some parts of this party actually recognize what is going on and want to implement those strategies because game recognizes game. I think that's a great way of putting it. So yeah, I mean, like, and it's interesting what you pointed out about the private jet subsidies. I didn't know about that. So much for being the party of the working class. I remember in 2024 how they said the Democratic Party was dead because Republicans are suddenly now the working class party. They aren't, never were, never will be. But every time they do big things like this, that does reach working class voters. People pay attention and people notice, oh, big things. And if they can market successfully, then it turns into votes. So I think Democrats truly do need to get their act together on this issue, and they need to come up with their own big policies, their own big ugly bill styles. Maybe not ugly, but you know, that in that vein, like something big. I don't know. Well, let's talk about that then. So you're running to be the next member of Congress from the 5th District. This is another two-parter. What would be your day one priority if you are elected? And what is your 100-day agenda? What are then the issues that come right after that you would want to focus on in those first 100 days? I mean, you don't got a lot of time in Congress to do that stuff because then you jump right into campaigning very soon. So I like to think that 100-day window is a really good place to get your foot in the door. So day one priority, 100-day priority.
Day one, quality of life. I think quality of life also extends into affordability, but the one thing that really irks a lot of people, and I think it really creates a pipeline to people becoming a little bit more conservative or, you know, just kind of leaning a little bit to the right, is this idea that they don't see the benefit of taxation. Taxation is something that has existed since the really the introduction of civilizations, right? But when you don't see the value of the money that is being taken away from your paycheck, the money that you are earning through your own blood, sweat, and tears, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't see those things, people start to get upset, right? And they start to wonder, even question the entire legitimacy of, you know, the government, right? So I want to make sure that our tax dollars are going toward things that benefit everyday people, right? I'm talking universal health care. It's something that every other country has. And realistically, why not? So my mom's an immigrant, right? And she came to this country like so many other immigrants, believing in this American dream. They believed in something better. They believed in the strength and the power and the possibility of the impossible that exists here in America, right? So why can't we have a healthcare system that is, you know, provides for its people, but is the best in the world? Why can't we have those things? Why don't we fight for, you know, the things that we desperately need, but also let's make them the best that they can be. Let's make it a staple in America that we have amazing, amazing healthcare. Then second, maternity and paternity leave, right? I think it is an immense travesty that people who are, you know, pregnant aren't able to get time off because they are, you know, close to being in labor. But also once they've had the child, I think it's incredibly important that we provide people with the time to spend with their children. And I also want to make sure that we have postpartum packages. Some people, especially new families, deserve the means to have like a foundation, right? Whether it's utilities to have the clothing, food, all that good stuff, right? And then also, I also want to get paid time off. We are the only country amongst, you know, major industrialized countries to not have paid time off, and all the data suggests that these three things are not only good for the economy, it'll boost morale, it'll boost quality of life, and it'll make living better in the United States. They are common sense solutions, and it's quite surprising to me that I feel like I am the only candidate of maybe across the entire United States that is focusing on paid time off as one of his main campaign points. And it's something that is universal almost across the entire world, but somehow it is taboo to talk about it here in the United States.
It's a pretty ambitious agenda, and I mean, but it's important that you talk about it. I think staying a part of the conversation means talking, you know, sticking out as the only one. maybe mentioning the issue. I think to the progressive movement's credit, I think there are some more people talking about it, but again, it's not a lot. So we need you guys to keep talking and getting and amplifying each other to reach more people, because these are issues that should be center face. Why are we the only ones in the world? Like, literally, why are we the only ones? Why not have a system where we are helping people? I think I actually like the way you put it. Why not? Like, that's right. Why not? Well, Johnny, we are running out of time here for our interview today. But before we do wrap up, are there any parting thoughts that you would like to share with my audience?
Yeah, I think that in this moment, it's so important for everyone to get involved with everything going on. Specifically, here in Chicago, we have seen an immense impact from the ICE operation. So I want everyone to really look around them and find something where they can help others. One of the quotes that I kind of live by is, do something for someone that they'll never be able to repay you back for. So I want to make sure that we are building community, building happiness, making sure that we're not just focused on ourselves, but also focused on others. I know times are tough, but community will truly bring us together and truly help us through these dire times.
I really like that quote. I just wrote it down on my sheet here. It's a very powerful quote, and I think speaks to the intensity of this moment. Johnny Anthony Bishop, thank you so much for joining us here on the Sean S. Show today. It was great talking with you about all of these priorities, and I really do hope we can have you back on maybe before the primary to get an update on your campaign and how things are rolling.
Absolutely. I'll be here.
Thank you so much, Johnny.
Thank you.
Did you then do high school?
No.
Ever?
Nope.
You just had 4 years. The math isn't mathing.
This is going to sound really weird. I started attending college when I was 14 years old.
I'm Hank Green, and I desperately want to learn how people have learned. And so, I'm talking to people about that. And today, I'm talking to comedian, writer, performer, and all-around great guy, my friend Brennan Lee Mulligan. We're talking about his life, his career, and his college journey.
So I want to talk about your education journey and stuff. Are you working on anything right now?
Always more awesome seasons of Dimension 20. Junior year is coming out right now. We got a few seasons in the can for that.
I forgot to add to your list, professional Dungeons and Dragons player, which is a real thing that is a job.
Yeah.
Some very few people have.
Very few people have it. Believe me, we wake up in a sense of stunned and bewildered gratitude every day. But Dimension 20, Dropout, make some noise. The podcast, Worlds Beyond Numbers, going great. Bunch of fun projects. And the greatest project of all, my wonderful family, was my wife Isabella Rowland, who we're going on tour with our improv show Bigger this spring, and we also welcomed a new baby into the world whose name and face we are sitting on until such time as she can speak in English and say that she's cool with us sharing that.
Well, I gotta say, I have a 7-year-old. I still don't trust him he can speak in English, but I'm not trusting him.
You're like,
he's like, I want 1 million subscribers, and I'm like, no.
I had this exact conversation where I was like, listen, there are pros and cons to accumulating a wide viewership. A lot of the pros require you to have done it through some professional activity, not getting them because of your dad.
Right.
And that kind of just brings the negatives and very few of the positives.
Exactly. Yeah. So you have always been a storyteller. You've always been, you create in your mind and you share that with the world. Do you have an idea of when that began?
Pre-memory. My mom and dad are very wont to remind me. My dad always reminds me that I corrected his bedtime stories. I noted them.
Oh yeah, Warren does that.
Yeah. Where it's like, hey, he's like, and then there was a purple wizard who rode a tiger, and I'd be like, he rode a lion. Noting,
Yeah, I'm like, you tell the story then, dude. I don't need to. Do I need to be here? I don't know.
You seem to have such a clear grasp of how these events unfolded. And then my mom, I think that the thing I credit as like an early, like, oh, this is going to be what this is my mom, who was a comic book writer, wrote Starstruck, the author, comic book sci-fi author Elaine Lee, sat down at an old Macintosh computer back in the early 90s, and when I would tell stories, she would type them. She was like, I was dictating stories to her. And even though that is like the foggiest edge of memory for me, I know the impact that having your mom, having a grown-up go, actually, this is very important. This story about a tiger mouse, and this story about how you should be allowed to walk with your socks and no shoes outside, and we're going to write this down. And that was a very...
It sounds like a true story that you remember, or at least apocryphally has been told.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is there a similar situation with regards to gaming? Because that is always a thing as well.
That started when I was 10. Gaming started when I was 10 years old. Once again, we have to shout out noted sci-fi author Elaine Lee. My mom, who this may not be a surprise for a kid that memorized a lot of animal facts. I was horrendously bullied in school. Put into trash cans, kicked around the playground.
Sure.
Bad look, bad time. And I was taken out of school. So my education was, I went to a Waldorf school for preschool.
Okay.
K through 4, and by the end of 4th grade, the bullying was bad enough that I was taken out of school, and I homeschooled for 4 years.
Wow.
Very heroic effort on my mom and pop's part. Big lift from them that they were, as artists and freelancers, able to kind of educate us and still be working. And during that time, I got put in karate classes, and for self-confidence and self-defense, and my mom had me join a D&D group for like socializing. She put up a notice in October Country, this little local game store.
I have heard about something called the Wayfinder experience. Did that come soon after that?
That was the same year. So, or shortly thereafter. When I was 11 years old, I started attending this LARP camp nearby. And
you can't get bullied at LARP camp.
You cannot get
because everybody's been through it.
Well, that's the thing, is you're resetting. You've basically been sorted by society. And now you go, okay, we're here at the island of misfit toys. I guess we get to start over.
So, LARP is live action role playing. So it's like you are playing a game, pretending to be in another world, universe, have different rules of some kind.
I believe there's a documentary premiering this year about Wayfinder called We Can Be Heroes that's all about the camp and everything like that. And yeah, it was an incredible, artistic, welcoming, passionate, nerdy community that also just had all the great stuff about a summer camp of teaching you how to connect with peers. And then my brother and I, when we were 15.
Is your brother older or younger?
Same age. We're not biologically related.
Okay.
My brother Griffin, Griffin Johnston, is a great web designer and amazing, brilliant designer and artist and entrepreneur. And he and I, he's about 5 months older than me. And we met when we were 4 years old.
Gotcha.
And we're best friends and brothers, we were best friends first, and then his dad met my mom. They fell in love, became married.
Oh, you did that.
We did that. Parent trapped him. Got him. We were only able to afford to go to one camp a year, and we realized that the reason that these other kids had such a strong community and all remembered each other's names was they were rich. They were going to 8 weeks of camp a summer. They spent 2 out of 12 months hanging out together. We would show up for our 1 week, and people would be friendly.
Yeah.
But we were like, I think something's going on.
They all know each other really well.
They know each other really well.
Oh man, can't imagine just like being like, bye kid.
Bye,
See you
kid.
in 2 months.
See you in 2 months. Oh God, yeah.
It was overnight.
Oh well, when I became a staff member at the camp, for the overnights, that was the thing.
You became a staff member at the camp.
Oh yes. My brother and I, when we were 15, we were like, we got to be able to go to more camp than we're going to. And
so instead of us paying you, you pay us.
Yes, truly. When we were 15, we started a company called Bootleg Adventures, which I was 15 years old, and my brother was 15 as well. And there was a referral program, so the camp gave you $50 for every kid you got to sign up, because they had started a new company. And so their first summer was a very low attendance. And then we ran an event, and we ran our second event. At our second event, it had over 100 participants, and we got 40 of them to sign up for camp, which like tripled or quadrupled the paying participant percentage of the camp. And we said 40 kids, $50 each. We would like to attend these camps. And they said, how about this? You just pay for room and board for the whole summer, and we hire you and give you shares in the company.
Oh.
And so we became part owners when we were
when you were children.
When we were children.
That's very weird.
It's very weird.
I would not give a child part ownership in my company.
What if you and 30 other owners were all 21?
Oh, 30 other owners.
Yes.
That sounds messy. Is it, did you sort of get a lot of, have you then from there, did you continue?
Yes, so I wrote...
Leading in that space?
Yeah, I became sort of a de facto head of the story department for a number of years. I wrote like 40 games. There was one summer that I wrote like half the games that got run that summer.
And did you have like relationships with a lot of the younger people?
Oh, in terms of like mentoring and there were a lot of I mean I had mentors in the older staff generation. I had my peers that were co-staff members, and many younger kids. I was like, and some of those kids are now full adults.
Yeah.
Which is, I remember there was one summer, I started going back a couple years ago. I went back, I'm sitting on a picnic table with another staff member who was my camper. I knew them when I was an adult and they were 11. And now they're a full adult and they're sitting on a picnic table with me, looking at the capture the flag field, watching one of their campers be a staff member for the first time. And they look at me and they're like, I can't believe it, man. I feel so old. And I said, you cannot say that to me.
Yeah.
You're my child.
Well, get ready, because you're not even old yet. You're still, We got ways to go, we hope. Still. So what about mentoring is important to you?
I have always loved it. Truly, you can say the parts of teaching that are selfless. You can say the parts like teaching is a good on the earth. So if you want to affect the attitude of going like, I do it for the noblesse oblige of imparting knowledge on the truth is this. When I am with someone who is looking for something that I have and I can give it to them, whether it's knowledge about how to do an improv scene, whether it's knowledge about how to write an adventure game, whether it's knowledge about how to run a game of D&D, the look on someone's face when they get it and it becomes theirs as well.
Oh, it becomes,
And because that's the whole thing, where it's like lighting a candle, like the lighting of a second candle does not diminish the first. Knowledge is something that when you share it, there's just more. There's no scarcity.
Right.
And watching someone learn is one of life's greatest joys. So that's why I like teaching.
I love that. Thanks, man.
Hey.
That feels
it's perfectly selfish. I love to watch. When you're a teacher, you have a front row seat to learning, which is the most beautiful thing to watch. It's great.
Did you then do high school?
No.
Ever?
Nope.
You just had 4 years. The math isn't mathing.
This is going to sound really weird. I started attending college when I was 14 years old. 14 years old.
You've been homeschooled for 4 years.
Yes.
And you're thinking about higher ed right now. You're thinking about college at 14.
Yeah. So what ends up happening is, and a lot of
because you're thinking, 4 years from now I got to go to college, and like how is that going?
How is that going?
I'm not going to get my Wayfinder money for my affiliate sales for kids.
Yes. To this day, my LARP summer camp has never paid me a cent in dividends. That's not why we do it. No one's making that LARP camp, and that's not the point. The point is just to is the good of the institution.
Sure.
But it was expressed gently and lovingly that if college were going to happen, a number of financial aid hurdles would have to be overcome, and a number of scholarship hurdles would have to be overcome. And so,
and maybe even some early credits, so you don't have to pay for as much as a school. Yeah.
Certain schools have a certain amount of scholarships that are reserved for transfer students, right? So there's a lot.
So like a smaller number.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like it's a smaller number of scholarships, but a way smaller pool of people competing, of applicants, right? So we ended up, there was a place near us called Ulster County Community College that the year we joined became part of the SUNY system. So it took us 3 years to get this 2-year degree, because the first 2 years we were not old enough to take our GED, and so we couldn't take a full course load.
Gotcha.
So we were kind of hybrid SUNY, Ulster, still some homeschooling.
This is weird.
It was weird. We were in a class. Now, I will
Was
say
that overwhelming? Was the course load heavy?
We were incredibly precocious to the point of me feeling a cringe of embarrassment at how precocious we were. You know what I mean?
Right. It's like we don't need to be crossing all these boundaries. And
I think doing it all hand in hand with my brother helped.
Yeah.
We would ride our bicycles to college in our pajama pants. You know, these weird little homeschool kids walk in. We were 14-year-old philosophy majors. If you can imagine something more annoying than that.
That sounds very precocious. That's
very,
not like your parents are like, we need to talk about movies and TV shows in the house. And that's the only allowed topics.
I mean, truly, can you just imagine and this it was 1 year away from being a community college. There were a ton of continuing education. Weirdly, there were, so in other words, don't think of like a party school, like Animal House kind of vibe. It's like a lot of older people, and there were a lot of homeschoolers like us who had done this track during high school years. And it was just, I just have horrifying memories of people in a philosophy 101 being like, I don't know, these are my deeply held beliefs, and me and my brother being like, boo, wrong, inconsistent. Fallacious.
Oh my God, that's a nightmare.
It was a nightmare. I apologize to everyone that knew me at that time.
So you picked philosophy because you were a 14-year-old precocious child? Is that what the sort of decision there?
I picked philosophy because of a really extraordinary professor.
Oh.
My philosophy professor, who has since passed away and is very dearly missed by every student he ever had, was Professor Tom Davis, who was the philosophy professor for SUNY Ulster and is one of the most remarkable professors I've ever encountered, and whose reputation really extends beyond.
That's wild.
He was a perfect man. He was a perfect man.
That's if you study philosophy enough, here's what happens.
Here's what happens. And just imagine
you become a perfect man. We're all working toward it.
We're all right, but he was, man. I won't hear anything. If any of his family or friends want to tell me differently,
please. I believe you, but I don't want to know.
I don't want to. I'm sure he would agree. He would disagree with me voraciously. He looked just like Merlin from Disney's Sword in the Stone, but with a little bit of a shorter beard, but otherwise a total face match. And he had a deep Flatbush accent like Bugs Bunny. He was really incredible, and he did an amazing job. There was a lot of philosophy of religions and the philosophy, he went through the basics and then covered a lot of interesting stuff, the philosophy of leadership and different governmental models, and he was a very cool guy.
Did you feel mentorship from that relationship?
Yeah. We cornered that dude for like 30 minutes after every class.
Jeez. I mean, I love these two kids, and I hate these two kids.
I get it. I'm right there with you.
You kind of indicated that your parents didn't necessarily expect that you would go do a higher education thing, that it was sort of your call. Did you feel an expectation?
Yeah, I think so. Okay. But it was, I want to say it was not a trip that was put on us. I think that there's a cultural expectation of it that never got challenged. If we had put up a big fight to not do college, I don't think my parents would have been antagonistic about that.
But that didn't feel like it was on the table, or you just...
It didn't feel like it was on the table. It just felt like this is the natural progression for what one does after a certain age.
Yeah. So you were getting your GED while you were in community college?
That's correct, yeah.
Were there any drawbacks to that?
No, I mean, getting the GED was all things being equal, like that was a pretty smooth process.
Yeah.
It's a funny thing because I think, again, people's associations with your GED, once again, there were people in that GED class who were well into adulthood and were going back to, fully matriculate to have graduated high school.
Yeah.
And for us, it was in order for us to be able to more affordably and quickly finish an associate's degree at SUNY Ulster.
So what age were you when you graduated?
with your associates?
17. And that's also the age that I went to a bachelor's program in the city in New York.
Was there like an alternate universe where you found another path? Was you straight into comedy, or?
Yeah, I think so. There are many alternate paths, right? And I think in terms of my relationship to SVA, so I went to school for screenwriting at the School of Visual Arts in New York as a 4-year program.
Wow.
Yeah, it was the film department. So I went there 2005 to 2009. The film department was a strong choice for me because it was a lot of, French New Wave, a lot of very independent, very artsy stuff.
Yeah.
And I went there with an interest in making genre fiction, which was not well received by I did not, this sort of howdy-doody looking homeschool kid rocked up to Hipster Central in 2009.
Yeah. And you're like, I want to tell space laser stories.
And everyone was like, we do not want to tell space laser stories.
Yeah.
The first day I walked in and my teacher, Zoran Amar, was seated on his desk, his old, Eastern European man who went, "My name is Zoran Amar. I come from a country which no longer exists." And he meant Yugoslavia, but in my head I went Atlantis. And, I didn't. We were on different wavelengths about what mattered in terms of fun.
Did you feel like you were kind of getting, because you talk about a professor who gave you a lot of support. Did you also feel like you had professors who did not provide that fuel?
I think, sure. I mean, I had a professor,
like even a drag on you.
In my second year, I had a professor who straight up read a script of mine that was like a 30-page script, and he came in and he looked at me for notes, and his note for the script was, "I don't understand this." And I was like, "What element?" And he was like, "The whole thing." And I was like, but you know who the main character is.
Like the words? Like
the
is
words?
Is it the words that are giving you the problem?
Yeah. And he was like, yeah. So, he just wanted everyone to write Glengarry Glen Ross again.
I don't know what that is. So it can't be that important.
It has a scene where Alec Baldwin yells at Jack Lemmon about closing sales.
I think maybe I have seen that.
Yeah.
Maybe just that one scene.
Coffee's for closers, yeah.
Yeah.
I think if I had my Demon Hunter character say coffee is for closers, I think maybe he would have liked it more.
So SVA, from my understanding, is not a cheap school. So how did that happen?
It was the school that gave me the biggest scholarship.
Okay.
And the most financial aid.
Yeah.
And that was sort of the decision-making factor.
Yeah.
And I had an older friend that had gone to the school and had said nice things about it. I really wanted to go to school in the city. Like New York was an important part of it to me. Like that's where I was sort of like grew up as a little kid, and I missed it. But it was very interesting because I think that like if I look back to zoom out, my experience at SUNY Ulster was so positive. And I had positive experiences at SVA. And it's no knock on the school, but I think when I got to SVA, I was not clear about what I was doing there.
Like you didn't understand it in your own head.
Yes.
Like not that you didn't like tell somebody else and they didn't understand.
No.
You didn't understand.
I didn't understand. In other words, I had been a very, I think I've always been a achievement-oriented person. But if you are that way in childhood, it can, we made this LARP company while I was going to SVA. That was also the time that I was the most creatively active at Wayfinder. So that's where a lot of my like initiative and agency was going. And I think I saw school as like, this is a place to get good grades, right?
Right.
In other words, I think that I was a little bit naive about not reading between the lines, where an institution presents you with an achievement rubric and says, this is what achievement looks like.
Right.
And you accept it unquestioningly. Yeah. And if I were to go back to 17-year-old Brennan, as he was like, I'm going to get this professor to like me.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a really good 10-minute student film. I'm going to do this great script about this thing, right? I would have gone back and said, hey, your adult life has already started. what this institution is presenting you with is opportunities for real skill building, meaning if you get good grades and forget the practical skills you got here, that was a net loss.
Right.
Right? If you don't retain the stuff, that's not good.
No one's looking at your GPA after you graduate.
No one has ever asked to look at my diploma. I know exactly where it is. I'm ready to show it.
It's good to have it.
Oh, yes.
It's good to have it because you shouldn't be lying about not having it. But
shouldn't you?
We'll leave that up.
You can edit that out.
Up to the world at large.
Yes.
But you have a diploma. I've never ever thought about my GPA since I graduated.
No.
I thought about a lot of the things I did. That's what they asked about.
Yes.
And that's what's on the resume. It's like the
Yes.
stuff I did while I was at school.
And I think too, especially because I went to school in New York, there's a part of, I went to see a show at the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater where I ended up sort of starting my career. I saw a show there when I was 17. I saw it when I was 17. I didn't take classes there until I was 24.
Yeah.
That's a 7-year gap of.
You think they would have taken you precocious little howdy doody ass on day one?
Hey, my man.